Hey, what's up? It's Comic95 the Savior, and for this video, I want to talk about the viral post that I saw talking about how these students that had a field trip to Kyoto basically had their trip ruined because of over-tourism. And of course, I wanted to give my own 2 cents on this topic and basically call out this bullshit that's going around. So before I debunk this whole thing, go into my own 2 cents on the topic, I want to first give a little background on me. I've been living in Japan for nearly a decade now. I'm almost 30 years old. I am married to a Japanese man. I have Japanese children, half Japanese children. What else should I tell you guys? I started off as a tourist, went to college in Japan, graduated, started working. I've lived across several cities: Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Kobe. I have traveled pretty much all across the country. I spent a lot of time there. I speak Japanese language fluently, and now that we have that out of the way so that you guys understand I'm not pulling shit out of my ass, I know what I'm talking about. I should also mention that I'm in contact with my in-laws. I hang out with them, I talk to them, I have Japanese friends. Okay, now that we're done with that, I want to address this. So, I think that before I get into that, I'm going to be reading the article in this video that gave me this topic, and unlike what I normally do where I just kind of like summarize what I read and tell you my 2 cents, I'm actually going to read through it because there were a lot of points made inside of this that I want to give my 2 cents back in response to, because this article is written in a way where it actually kind of answers its own question for why some problems exist. And also, I feel like this just proves to me that Japanese people fail to use their own brains and think about why they have the problems that they do, and instead their mindset is very similar to, like, I won't even say past, because I feel like we have this problem with white people in the US today, but in particular Jim Crow era white America, so to speak, where it's much easier to blame other people than to blame your own. And I feel like this is exactly what's going on with it. So anyway, before I get into reading the article, I think it's really important for us to first talk about how these myths and things like this even spread in the first place. Why there's so much misinformation and lies about what problems are. And I feel like one of those biggest things are really us as foreigners. I feel like for a lot of us, not only do we lie and exaggerate about how wonderful Japan is, not that it's a horrible place, but it's definitely very overrated, but another really big thing is that they receive so much praise for doing bare minimum stuff and exaggeration for things and reasons why they do things. And with that said, it's kind of created this path where they can say and do whatever they want and they go unchecked. And this is kind of an example of that. The other example is that we have set ourselves up to be the fall guys in every scenario, and where we've made it where there's the assumption that if anything goes wrong, something's bad, it's a foreigner. We've also emboldened, or whatever you want to call it, encouraged Japanese people to feel the need to confront and complain about us, even though they don't address and won't complain to their own people for doing the exact same, if not worse, things. I will address that later on inside this video as I read the article, because actually the author of the article brought up a point that literally ties into what I'm about to say about that. And it was really funny because they don't address the fact that you guys do the same thing and this is your problem, but rather they give a perspective and story about foreigners causing problems. But that's a whole nother story. So, I want to first talk about sizes and tourist numbers. Japan has roughly half the population of the United States. I know that this has been kind of skewed lately because their population, I think both of our populations are technically declining, but Japan's even more so. So I think they're actually less than half of what we are, but to make things easier, we're just going to say they have about half of our population. If you don't already know this, Japan is about the same size as the state of California. And with that said, even though they're only the size of one US state, they have roughly half of America's population inside of it. But another thing that I find very interesting, and again, this goes back into this mythical, special Japan, just like they think they're the only place that has all 4 seasons, right? Crazy, right? But they really believe that. Not everybody, but a lot of people. I feel like recently it has kind of died down. But anyway, back on subject. A lot of people think that because America is so big that we can't understand tourism issues, but what they fail to understand is that most Americans aren't living all spread out in this country. Most Americans live in the same few states. The average American that you talk to is going to say they live in Illinois State, New York State, Texas State, California State, If you want to be a little more festive, you'll get Hawaii, Florida, etc. But generally speaking, or like Nevada, whatever. But again, generally speaking, most Americans pretty much live inside of the states with the big cities that you've heard of. In particular, let's go back to the big cities part. They typically live within those big cities. We're not living in countryside, suburban, middle of nowhere. For example, my hometown is, or my home state is Illinois State, right? Well, most people that live in Illinois State, like myself, they typically live in the Chicago or Chicagoland area. If you don't know what Chicagoland means, it literally just means the surrounding cities, so basically suburbs. Think about Tokyo. If you were to make Tokyo have a Chicagoland area, or as they sometimes say, Tokyo area, that would include places like Yokohama, Saitama, etc., because they're literally like within an hour or less away from Tokyo. Like you can easily get to Saitama or Yokohama from central Tokyo. It's not a very long drive, not a very long, train ride, etc. So anyway, just to like explain what all of these things mean. We also typically live in overcrowded cities that also deal with tourism. But you don't see or hear us complaining about the same things. If you live in any major city in the US, you typically are going to live in an apartment unless you have so much money you can afford a very big house. In fact, even then, houses are only a thing in places like Los Angeles. If you live in, well, I don't know, but I can't speak on Houston and Dallas. But like if you live somewhere like Chicago or New York, pretty much nobody has a house. Like even the rich, like you're going to be living inside of a luxury condo. You might have a condo up in the clouds and whatnot on the 57th floor or some shit, but you're not going to be living in a house no matter how rich you are, because it's not a matter of having the money to pay for it, it's a matter of space. And I've actually had this argument with people on YouTube before, because I had somebody trying to troll me and acting like they had a much better place than I did. I'm like, my husband's not a millionaire, so you probably do, even though you don't, because I caught you in your lie, but whatever. That's a whole nother story. So with that said, we've kind of painted and created this picture where we act like everything in Japan is exclusive to Japan. Their tourism issues are exclusive to them. Using good manners, exclusive to them. Like everything is exclusive. Everything is so Japanese, so wonderful, so perfect, so nice. The people are so beautiful, so friendly. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say that these things don't exist, but we've kind of painted this overly exaggerated positive picture of them to the point that we're ignoring the ugly side, the racist side, the prejudice side, the right in your face, this is unfair side. And I'll do another video on this topic because there's another more recent story that I also want to address. Really, that's not more recent, that came out at the same time. But anyway, I decided that we should first pull up the actual data to see what the tourist numbers are in comparison of both countries. So keep in mind that just like how most tourists that come to Japan are going to stick typically between Okinawa, I wouldn't even say Okinawa is super popular. That's more so for like more seasoned tourists. So really, we're going to say Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto. Those are like all of the most popular places that tourists are going to go to. Sometimes they'll venture off into places like Sapporo or Okinawa, but generally speaking, they're not going to go to those two places. With that said, there is so-called over-tourism, particularly in cities such as Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka probably takes third place for the so-called over-tourism. And it's really funny because since the Japanese don't really think much about other people besides themselves, and it's really funny because Americans get that label when it's really them. They don't really consider the fact that we have the same issues that you do. Do you think Hawaii doesn't suffer from over-tourism? Do you think Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, all the places that you guys like to go to for vacations and actually contribute to the over-tourism there? Do you think those places don't have issues with cultures being lost due to an influx of Asians and in particular Japanese people? Because I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that Don Quixote, Family Mart, Round One shouldn't be in Hawaii or Los Angeles. Neither should Kokoichi. Neither should Ippudo Ramen. And I think one more thing that we don't talk about is the fact that when Japanese people do tour abroad, they're not like the Chinese or Americans. And I don't mean it in the good way, as in they don't cause any problems or anything like that, because they do. But what I'm talking about is they don't bring money with them. When Japanese people go to places like Hawaii, they'll share pictures and photos and videos pretending like they're rich and like they were living the life on their vacation, but their dollars say otherwise. They're not big spenders when they go abroad to travel. They typically want to do the cheapest things possible. Stay at the cheapest hotels, they cook food at home, they eat at cheap restaurants, they eat at fast food places, etc. Meanwhile, for the most part, most foreigners that come to their country, in particular the Chinese, the Americans that they hate so much, they're big spenders. They buy expensive food, they go to fancy restaurants, they go to all the tourist sites that actually cost money. Meanwhile, the Japanese have literally been making news articles bragging and, complaining and crying about the fact that, they had to bring their own bags of rice to Hawaii because they can't afford the flight and the trip, as though it's some sort of right to life, like you have to go to Hawaii or something. In other words, too busy trying to pretend like I'm rich on social media, so I'm gonna book a trip that I can't afford, and I'm so desperate to say that I went to Hawaii this summer like how I do every year, I'd rather go there eating trash and eating garbage poor people food, aka rice, instead of being able to eat actual meals. But again, these are the same people complaining about over tourism. But keep in mind, they're causing over tourism in Hawaii, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York City. And not only are they causing over tourism by existing there and taking up a bed in a hotel room, they're not spending money to help the economy. So actually, you're taking up a seat. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, at least if you're going to enter the country, fine, spend money and help the economy. But they're spending so little, it would actually be better if you stayed at home and let a Chinese or some other person, I don't know, Canadian, Australian, European, take your place. Like, imagine if Americans and Chinese people were going to Japan, and then not only were they taking up, the hotel room or whatever, but they're going to stay at the cheapest hotels. They're going to, and yes, I know that there's some people that do this, but most do not. They're just going to eat at the cheapest of restaurants. They're only going to eat cheap 7-Eleven food. They're not going to buy souvenirs. They're not going to attend the shows that cost money, etc. They would have news articles, newspapers, magazines. It would be everywhere on Twitter. X, whatever you want to call it. But see how that double standard exists? See, when they do it, we should look up to them. Oh, we understand the yen rate is low. But see, if we do that, because if they forget that we're actually dealing with inflation right now and there's people that don't have jobs right now, they don't care about that. Everything's just about the Japanese, right? So it's okay for you to come to our country and you don't have to contribute to the economy. And you can also add to the crowds. But we can contribute to your economy, but you don't want to be in crowds. Like, we shouldn't take up a hotel room. We really shouldn't exist there. Just send the money. That's basically what you're saying. And it's totally unfair. And it's like, go figure. You can't have it both ways. You complain about their existence in Japan. Then when people decide to come there, but then choose to not, I don't know, what do you call it? Patronize, whatever you want to call it. Go to certain establishments, thus not spend their money there. Now you're upset and complaining that they're not giving you their money. You can't insult the people that are paying for your business and services and then expect them to keep going there. And granted, I don't think that's the reason why they're losing money from these people, but I'm just saying, make up your mind. You can have it both ways. First, you were complaining that you didn't want them here. Now, they don't go there, and now you're like, oh, let's figure out how to bring them back. And I feel like we're about to see the exact same thing with this whole tourism debate that's going on right now, because Japan has been benefiting from this positive over promotion of how wonderful Japan is. And everybody's hating on foreigners right now. But just as we saw during the pandemic, how desperate the Japanese people were to try to attract the few foreigners that were there to eat at their restaurant, to shop at their little souvenir store, whatever, to stay at their hotel. It's just really funny to me seeing how soon they forgot about that. And then not just that, forget about how soon they forgot about that part of it, but the part that really amazes me is that, again, they complain about people coming to their country and contributing to crowds, this, that, and the other. But when they go to your country, they still contribute to the crowd. They're just not going to pay anything. They'll go inside the store, they'll look around, but they're not going to buy souvenirs to take back home. They're not going to eat at that expensive restaurant. They'll do maybe 1, 2, no more than 3 expensive things, and that's it. They might stay there for a week. They might stay there for 2 weeks, but they're not going to spend 2 weeks worth of tourism dollars. But that's a whole nother story. Just a thought. But, we don't really bitch and complain about it. We just kind of accept it. We enjoy eating and going to these places too. But you get a totally different reaction when you try to do this in their country. Interesting. Also interesting that there's this huge push to get rid of foreigners, but when you look at the fact that they love to vacation too and where they like to go, it's very interesting that they specifically prefer to go to the US, even although it's very expensive, especially for them with the yen being so weak. It is a number one destination for them. Now, granted, because the yen is doing so bad right now, there has been more of a push and interest to travel around Asia because it's cheaper, closer, more affordable, and likewise, same thing with visas. There has been a bigger push for people to start pursuing getting a visa to go to Canada or to the UK or Australia because it's easier to get a visa. They have the working holiday visa you can get there. The list goes on. So, let's talk about actual numbers. Let's see. So, alright. In total, Tokyo received approximately 18.97 million visitors. I'm going to use last year's data because this year is not over yet. In comparison, Los Angeles received 49.1 million tourists. And you're complaining about Tokyo. Not that we don't complain at all, but we're not making national headlines, and you're not seeing, what do you call them, angels, angelinos, whatever y'all call yourselves. If you're from Los Angeles, I don't see them picketing, protesting, bitching, complaining, shutting people out, talking about revoking visas. In fact, they're probably one of the best places to be in right now if you are somebody overstaying on a visa or that entered the country illegally now with this whole situation with ICE going on. I'm not going to get into my 2 cents on what I feel about ICE or the National Guard. That's for another video. But just for right now, I just want to put that into perspective for you. So you don't even have half of the number of tourists. And it's fun that this is Los Angeles because they're the same size as the entirety of Japan. Okay. Osaka, 14.58 million. Kyoto, 10.87 million, which is interesting. Because I keep seeing Kyoto being bought up the most in comparison to Tokyo. And I feel like, I'll be fair, I'm not going to be unfair with this. I get it and I also don't. The real issue is that Kyoto is more limited than Tokyo. Tokyo is more spread out. And when people do visit Tokyo, they normally are going to several different areas, different cities. Most people, when they go to Kyoto, they're going to stay in like the Gion district type area. They're not going to go very far from Kawaramachi and, God, I can't remember the names of the places. Karasuma, whatever, like that station, Kawaramachi. And that's pretty much it. Karasuma, Kawaramachi, and nowhere else. That's the end of your little day trip and you're gone. Which begs, for me to ask this question. Why is the anger at the fact that people are going here when you've only provided one area for tourists to go to? And I think it's really sad because I really love the countryside in Kyoto. One of my best little vacation day trip, whatever type of things that I did with my ex-boyfriend prior to me getting married. I can't remember the name of the place, but we went way out into the countryside there. It was a really fun trip. It was so country that the birds there weren't afraid of cars. So you could literally run over a bird. So you had to stop and wait for them to fly away, walk away, because they had no instinct to fear a car coming because they rarely encounter cars. There was no internet out here, no street lights, just a couple of shops and just old Japanese people that wanted to live life in the wild, basically. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. My point here is this. If you only have literally 1.5 cities, because I really don't, Kawaramachi and Karasuma are the same area, and I forget what the actual name of that, it's actually Nishi Kyoto, or I don't know what the hell you call that area. I used to live there, sadly, and to give you some perspective, I used to live, Shinkyogoku Station, something like that. I used to live near there. And so that's literally 2-3 stops away from Karasuma Station. If I wanted to, you could literally ride a bike, walk there. But that's another story. So, if there's only one place to go to, what's going to happen? And to put this into perspective for you, imagine if Tokyo only had Shibuya. Specifically Shibuya City. Not the entirety of Shibuya, Sasazuka or Sendagaya or Harajuku. Imagine that it's just Shibuya. What's that area? I can't think of the name. It starts with a D. Do something. I can't remember the name. But anyway, long story short, imagine if it's just that area. Okay. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to feel like there's way too many tourists because the only thing to do is in one spot. And sometimes Shibuya does feel that way. But the reason why it doesn't quite exactly feel like Kyoto is it's spread out. Both Shibuya City and Tokyo as a whole. It's a much larger space of things to do. Kyoto is not a small city, but the things that are labeled as tourist attractions are very limited. You can go everywhere you need to go, with the exception of Kyoto Station, that is a little out of the way. But everywhere that you want to go, everywhere that you want to see on your bucket list in Kyoto can all be done. If let's say there's no tourists within like an hour's time span. Like it's not that spread out. That is not the case for Tokyo. Tokyo has much more in several different cities within the city. For example, you're going to want to spend possibly a day in Shinjuku, possibly a day in Shibuya, possibly a day in Roppongi. And granted, you don't have to do that. You can definitely do Tokyo in a day or two if you want to. But you get what I'm trying to say. If you really wanted to thoroughly explore everything, you're going to need at least one day, if not 2 days, for some individual cities within Tokyo. And it's really hard for me to ever explain how cities work in Japan, because the way that it goes is there's a big overall city, which to me I feel is more like a state, and then there's cities within it. Because even although Tokyo is the city, really the individual neighborhoods are more like the actual cities in Japanese, whatever, I won't say culture, but in Japanese geography is the best way that I can put it. So to me, I see Tokyo as being the state, and the city would be like Shibuya. The city would be Shinjuku, etc. That makes it much easier for people to understand, in my opinion. So anyway, back on subject. Everything is limited to that one area. So it's not a matter of there being too many people. The problem is there's too little to see and or do. That's the real issue. The other thing, like I said, which now we're going to get into the article, the problem is simply the way that you advertise where to go, the things that there are to do in your respective home country. Japan has this tokenism, Karen-like personality where they think every problem they encounter is unique to themselves. America is literally getting double your tourists. We're happy to get the dollars in. We're not complaining. Just saying. Not to mention, the other crazy thing to me is this. If you're contributing to the same problem, how can you complain about the problem you're dealing with domestically? You're literally going abroad and traveling to America, to Europe, to other Asian countries, but you're outside picketing and protesting the existence of foreigners in your country. You're literally studying your butt off to learn English so you can go to school abroad or so that your children can, but then you're upset about the existence of foreigners wanting to enter your country to work and study here. Sounds a little unfair if you ask me, very hypocritical. But okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way and we understand, and this is just Los Angeles, might I add. Did I even search to see what the numbers are for? Oh, yes, I did. New York is the most visited city in the United States with 64.3 million. Miami with 28.2 million. And again, like I said, Los Angeles with 49.1. So first, second, third place for cities visited. First place is New York, second place Los Angeles, and third place is Miami. Then, for visitors in Japan, first place, sorry to list in order, is Tokyo, Osaka, and then Kyoto. And actually, I'm kind of shocked by that. I would have thought that Kyoto would have been second place. Because to be honest, I didn't really hear much about Osaka until I started looking at the deep Japan vlogger side of YouTube back in the day. But anyway, that's off subject. Not going to get into that. So, now that we understand that America has way more tourism and that just like Japan, while yes, it is more spread out, unlike Japan, most Americans are living in that specific vicinity. For example, like I said, people that live in California state typically are going to live mostly in Los Angeles, mostly in San Francisco, Sacramento, etc. They're going to stay in those areas, San Diego. They have more cities in which people live in. If you live in Illinois state, most Americans that are living in Illinois, they're going to live in Chicago or the Chicagoland area. Chicagoland meaning the surrounding cities and areas around it. So for example, the suburbs that are around the main city. New York State, same way. Most people that live in New York State, they're going to live in New York City. Okay, you live in Texas, you're going to be torn between the two cities. Either you're going to live in Houston or you're going to live in Dallas. Now, Austin's become, a conversation, but you get what I'm trying to say. Typically, you're going to stay within those cities. So while yes, there's more space and it's more spread out, if nobody goes to those places, there's nothing in those other places. It doesn't matter how much space or land you have if it's not being used for tourism. Okay, now that we understand that in American terms, let's put that in Japanese terms. Yes, Japan has more space, more mountains, more cities, but who wants to go to the countryside to do nothing? Like, sure, you can look at the mountains and the flowers and take a picture, but then it's like, okay, like, what are my kids gonna do? Where am I gonna sleep? There's no street lights. There's no car. Like, I can't get a taxi. This is not fun anymore. There are no tourist attractions. There's nothing available for me to read in English, Korean, Chinese, etc. And before you say, you should learn Japanese. Do Japanese people learn Italian, French, or even English before they go abroad? Nope. In fact, when they want to study for going abroad, they just learn English. Even if they're going to a European country that does not speak English. That's all they bother to learn because they're being lazy, and they typically already have some sort of background in English because they went to international school or they were forced, like most Japanese people, to study English in junior high school and or high school. But that's a whole other conversation for a whole other video. We're not going to talk about that today, but I just wanted to gloss over that. Okay, now that we understand that, I think we are ready to dive into the article. So to explain this, if I did not already explain it earlier, I am literally going to read the article, and unlike how I normally do, where I read it, give my 2 cents, I am going to actually, where I summarize it and have already read it. I did already read the article, but I'm going to read it again out loud to you, and as I go through it, I'm going to pick apart the problems that I have with this article and address what the real issue is. So, to give it a preface, they basically were trying to say in a nutshell that these poor Japanese students can't have the cultural experience of Kyoto that their parents had because tourists have ruined it. They've overcrowded the place. They're breaking the rules. They're trashing it. Kyoto just isn't what it used to be. They're trying to appeal to the easily persuaded, stupid, everyday, average, prejudiced, racist, xenophobic, aka racist. Same meaning. Look it up. It's literally a synonym. It's like saying cute and pretty. Like, I didn't say that you're cute. I said you were pretty. I didn't say you're racist. I said you were xenophobic. They have the same meaning. But okay, let's get into the article and see what exactly is going on here. What's the big commotion? What's the complaint all about? Okay. So, this article is from This Week in Asia, Lifestyle and Culture. It's titled, Japan Schools Ditch Kyoto Class Trips as Over-Tourism Bites. It's too expensive. Okay. The crush of foreign visitors in Kyoto has become so overwhelming that some Japanese schools are abandoning the ancient capital as a destination for their class trips. A quiet but telling sign of how over-tourism is reshaping life for local residents. I want to stop that right there and just say, why do Japanese people act like Kyoto has never been like a huge tourist place even for themselves? And to put this into perspective for you, I was in Japan before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after the pandemic. And I can tell you from personal experience, I moved to Kyoto back in, 2017? No, I moved there at the beginning of 2018, and I left there in the middle of 2019, if I recall, sometime around that late summer, early fall. So I spent roughly about a year and a half or so there. Okay. With that said, every time I went to Kyoto, both before, during, and after the pandemic, it was always really, really busy. It was always impossible to get on the bus, to get on the train, and get a seat. Every time that the bus stopped, you pretty much had to get off the bus or just squish together. And everybody would get off at the same couple of stops. So sometimes, like, getting on the bus, you didn't even have to worry about, like, getting off because you knew everybody was going to stay on the bus until the last stop. Because we're all getting off at the same touristy place. Because, like I said, there's only, like, 2 places to go when you go to Kyoto. Nobody's going out into the countryside unless you know how to drive, have a car, and happen to have done your research and other things to do and places to go. And you feel comfortable and confident enough speaking Japanese driving up a mountain, which the average person does not do or feel comfortable doing any of those things. Not to mention the time it takes to go out of your way, because you're going like 3-4 hours away from central Tokyo up into the mountains. So very unrealistic. But anyway, this false narrative pretending like Kyoto, did I say Tokyo? I meant to say Kyoto if I did. pretending like Kyoto, which they're literally spelled the same way, it's just the letters are scrambled. And I never noticed that until I went to Japan. And it gets even more confusing because like the kanji looks similar. So when you're first learning how to read Japanese, not trying to get off subject, just a little lesson for you guys. It's a little confusing because you're like, why does that look familiar? Kyoto is almost spelled the exact same way as Tokyo, both phonetically, and even the kanji characters are super similar, but they're not the same. But anyway, back on subject. So, even during the pandemic, and this was the perfect way for me to actually say what it looked like. In fact, I have videos even showing what it looked like in my phone. But yes, I will acknowledge, sure, it was a little less. There were a few less people, I'll say that. But pretending like it wasn't still super crowded and like you didn't have to still get there at 6 or 7 a.m. to get your infamous Toddy Shine, whatever, photo walking up all them damn stairs is a fucking lie. It was still overcrowded and full of both school students, junior high school and high school students, and adults that were touring from various cities, people that live locally, people that wanted to go on dates from abroad, etc. In fact, I was one of the people that did that. In fact, I did it twice with 2 different relationships. I went once back in 2020, and I went a second time in 2022, which was just after they kind of lessened up on the rules for allowing tourists to come back into the country. We were still required to wear masks at that point. Or was it 2021? I think it was 2022 at that point. So yeah, it was still the same way. There was no difference getting on the bus. It was still full of Japanese people, old, young, etc. At this point, there were pretty much no foreigners in Japan. And the ones who are there were like myself. They had already been to these places before. They lived here. They were a local. So for them, they're not excited to go to these places. They've already done it 50 times. You had some influencers that, went to these places, booked these trips because they knew that they were going to be able to take photos and videos without having to deal with all the tourists there. But the reality is that kind of didn't happen like how I would have thought it would have. People kind of just stayed home and didn't, even like after you were allowed to travel again, if you will, they didn't go there. In fact, the Japanese did. So this lie and myth that the over-tourism is only because of tourists, and that if you get rid of the tourists, things go back to normal, people can enjoy their homes, is bullshit. It's just like New York City. Even if, look, I wasn't here, and we had stricter rules in the U.S. for how things went, like what places could be open, going outside. Japan never had a mandate for restaurants and businesses to close. Everyone was still allowed to operate. People just had reduced hours and different rules on like spacing and masks, etc. That's a whole another story. But anyway, like this lie of pretending like if you just get rid of tourists is dumb, because think about New York. If they allowed the businesses to be open, or even shortly after they did allow them to open again, did New York suddenly not stay busy? Like, were there suddenly not crowds of people on sidewalks and streets inside of stores? No. As soon as these businesses were allowed to reopen, it went right back to being New York. Same thing for Los Angeles. We don't have to have outside tourism. Domestic tourism will just take their place. And that's exactly what happened in Japan. You're so busy fixated and focusing on the white, Asian, or even African, black, whatever, tourists that you see, you're ignoring yourselves right in front of you. But whatever. I digress. Let's carry on. So, teachers complain their pupils now face packed buses and subways, crowds at temples and shrines, and hotel and restaurant prices that have doubled or even tripled. The result, according to school trip organizers, is disappointment for students and frustration for parents who once saw Kyoto as a rite of passage. Oh my god. I have another video on this topic, so I won't spend too much time talking about this, but there's quite a lot to dissect inside of just that one little paragraph right there. Teachers are complaining about buses and subways and crowds at temples and shrines. When were there not crowds at these places? And I mean crazy crowds. It's always been that way, especially during the summertime. Really, anytime you go, summer or spring or fall, because they give you a different reason to go every time of year. In fact, I would argue the only time Kyoto probably isn't really popular to go, but is necessarily not going to be crowded, is probably winter. But even then, okay, well then you got Christmas. But I would literally say that's probably the least crowded time of year. It's still going to be really crowded, but I mean, during the springtime, everybody wants to see the cherry blossoms. During the summertime, field trips, good weather, sweltering hot, but that's when everybody has their vacations. There's lots of summer holidays in Japan. During the fall time, people want to see, the leaves changing, etc. And I don't understand that, but I'm just, excuse the traffic. I'm just explaining like what people do. So with that said, why are you all lying? Like these teachers are pretending like this is a new problem that just suddenly existed. Again, I can acknowledge, have crowds become more? Sure, but has Hawaii not become busier? Has New York not become busier? Has Los Angeles? Everywhere in the world. And again, it's not even in crazy numbers. There have always been so many people in Kyoto that even if you were to say that there have been 10 million more people this year than last year, you can't tell the difference. Because does it matter if the line is outside the restaurant anyway? Does it matter if every time you've gone anywhere, you had to walk super slow, shoulder to shoulder, can't even get a picture because you got to keep walking and going with the crowd? It's always been that way. That's nothing new. Why are we pretending like these problems are just coming out of nowhere, because of tourists? This goes back into the anti-foreigner, anti-tourist propaganda, and I hate to say it because I know you guys are listening to me, but hear me out. It's largely in fault of white people because you all keep trying so hard to kiss their ass and wanting to be tokens and y'all don't realize you complaining about tourists actually is hurting your own image because the Japanese do not differentiate between tourist versus local resident. They may say that to you if you ask them, but they don't because how the hell would they know? You speaking Japanese don't mean shit either. Anybody that has a problem with over-tourism, they will view you as the problem. I know it's hard for you all to understand, especially for the American ones in particular, because you've never been in the minority role, so you've never thought collectively as a group. You always just think about yourself individually. But as a black person, I understand the idea that if a lot of, or some, or even one of us does something, the stereotype would be that all of us do this. You all don't seem to understand that just like how racist white people don't differentiate a light skinned versus a dark skinned black person, Japanese people do not differentiate a local resident versus a tourist. You're all foreigners, as they call you. You're all tourists to them. Generally speaking, a Japanese person that does not like foreigners is going to throw tourists and local residents alike into the same category. Likewise, I don't think I've ever heard of a racist white person say, I only dislike the dark-skinned blacks. The light-skinned ones are okay. Sure, you could find me someone out there, but you get what I'm trying to say. You're literally cooning and Uncle Tomming for them, and it really just pisses me off. But that's another story, and if you don't know what those things mean, look it up. Okay, back on subject. Let's keep reading. Oh, I've forgotten to address the second part of it. The part where they say in hotel and restaurant prices that have doubled or even tripled. Then they talk about how it disappoints the students. But can we address the elephant in the room? Do you think that tourists said to these hotels and restaurants, hey, me and my white family are on our way here, so we need you all to up the prices to keep those Asians out? That's not the way that went. You know what did happen? Your conniving fellow Japanese decided, we want to make money and capitalize off of this. These rich white people are willing to pay 2, 3, 4, 5 times what a Japanese person will. How about we keep our employees' salaries stagnant? We're not going to pay them more per hour, but let's double, triple, quadruple the prices. So that this way, we're not booked out, for months on end. Now people can't, they can't afford us like that. People aren't going to be like, wow, it only costs $50 a night. Now it's $200, $300 a night. So now, sure, you're going to still stay booked. But it's not going to be to the point where now there's a waiting list and they're losing money because they're booked out. So they could have charged more. You know what I'm trying to say? They're charging more because they're greedy. Who do you think owns those hotels that you're complaining about? Who owns those restaurants? We need that Spider-Man meme right now. You're pointing at yourself. Every problem that you're complaining about is you. You do not have enough places for tourists to go to. So what do? They congregate in the Gion area, Kawaramachi, Karasuma. You are the ones that own these restaurants and establishments. You set the prices. Do you know the reason why most places are not going to ban foreigners and say we don't want them to come here? Because even although they're picketing and rioting and voting out there with you, I don't even say voting, they're pretending to be voting for what you want them to. They want money. Money talks. They don't give a shit about you being priced out. That's why they raise the prices. You can make up all the excuses in the world, and foreigners, white people in particular, were buying into this shit. Oh, I'm fine with paying 1,000 yen more. I'm fine with paying 5,000 yen more. I'll pay 20,000 yen more. AKA, for those of you guys that don't know, to make this make sense to you, 1,000 yen is basically 10 US dollars. 20,000 yen is 200, 10,000, 100. These numbers are not the same anymore because the yen rate has plummeted, but hopefully it will eventually get back to where it was. And when it does, that's an easy way to estimate how much things cost. Generally, it's still close to that amount. But long story short, okay, why are you mad at the customers that are being conned into paying more, aka the tourists that are visiting Japan, such as Americans, Canadians, Australians, various Asians, Koreans, Chinese? Why are you mad at them for paying the prices? And you're not mad at the Japanese people that own these places for raising them. I'm sorry to break it to you, but you've been priced out by your own people, not us. We did not cause the prices to rise. They could have kept those prices at 150 a night. They decided, why would we charge 150 USD per night when these Americans think that's a steal? This whole debate is so dumb because basically, in a nutshell, they're mad at you for your willingness and the fact that you have the means to pay the fee, rather than being mad at the person that decided to raise the rate out of greed because they know foreigners are willing to pay the price. Again, displaced anger. Let me also add that, as I kind of talked about a little bit earlier, this is actually a huge, big old slap to the face, just like I said it was going to happen, to the foreigners that were being super brown nosers, bootlickers, ass kissers, mainly white foreigners, but I saw some other black and Asians doing this too, in which people were gladly saying, oh, we'll pay more, we don't mind, we want to help the Japanese economy. Meanwhile, what you don't know is you're being set up. See, restaurants are telling you you're helping the economy. Please pay more. Meanwhile, the locals are now protesting and angry at you for paying more because while you think you're helping the economy, you're pricing out the Japanese. Now you see how you can't win? Don't you wish you listened to me like how I told you guys you were wrong? But then again, I'll blame myself. I don't think I actually ever posted the full video of what I was talking about. Rather, I've sprinkled in my information or my thoughts on that whole subject to you guys at some point. But anyway, now you see what I mean. How you're being played by the industry. They're, pulling on your heartstrings. Hey, help us out. Japan's a third world country now. We need money. We want to be like Thailand. And then at the same time, they're going behind your back and they're picketing and rioting outside with everybody like, yeah, those foreigners are pricing us out. Kick them out of our country. You see what I'm saying now? Anyway, back to the video. I mean, we're booked out when we do that. But when we charge $300 a night, we typically still have 1 or 2 rooms left. Shoot, let's consider $400. That's exactly what they're doing. They're playing in your face. And you're too stupid to realize that because you've been brainwashed by the media. This is the problem with Japanese culture. They don't think for themselves. They've been brainwashed by their media to blame foreigners and think they're the problem. And the reason why I say this is given Jim Crow, it reminds me of like what it was like for poor white people back in the day, where they tried to make it seem, and you're seeing this right now with Republicans, they're trying to make it seem like the poor white man has the same struggles, benefits, and problems that the rich, wealthy, or middle-class white man does. And that's not true. They're literally using you to team up with them against minorities. And in this case, they're using you, the poor Japanese, to team up and be angry at foreigners. They're pretending like they're the problem, when really, you should be pointing the finger back at your own people. It's these sleazy business owners. It's the hotel owners. It's the restaurant owners. They are the ones that are making the prices, not tourists. We don't want to pay them either. In fact, it's really bogus because there's this mindset that Americans are rich. Not everyone visiting Japan is rich. Look at my comment section. You know how many broke people go to Japan with a couple dollars in their pocket, living off of 7-Eleven food? and taking buses and trains everywhere, never going to get in a taxi, never going to pay for any sort of, touristy, whatever type of experience because they can't afford it. Not to mention, all of your tourists are not from the US. Some of them come from countries that have even weaker currency than your own. So when you raise these prices, forget about just pricing out the Japanese. Tourists are being priced out. People that have been saving to come to Japan for years, now they can't afford it either. So sure, for the average American visiting, we can, and this is a good deal for most of us. Not everybody visiting Japan is going to be an American. I know it's hard to believe because you all obsess over us, and look, YouTube is our platform, so you see us a lot. And again, Google, X, aka Twitter, is our platform. I get it, but we're not all of your... I don't even think we're most of the tourism that Japan gets. So, yeah. Not to mention, let's also talk about why Americans even go there. I'm going to speak on my country as an American. You can't advertise your country as being safe, clean, beautiful women, friendly people, traditional, one of the only places that has a 6 million year old hotel, and then act shocked that we want to go there. Not to mention the crazy outrage that people have towards foreigners for the over-tourism, but not their own people. Who do you think encouraged us to even make content and to go to Japan? Japanese people capitalize on the love of their country too. They have TikToks, they have Instagram pages, they have Facebook pages, they have YouTube channels. They are also encouraging tourists to visit the country. Do you all get mad at them? No. In fact, you all try to copy off of each other and be like, hey, I can make a video on that too. I have more access to restaurants, to money, to shopping, to experiences. Let me capitalize on my city, my country, my lifestyle. But you all get mad at the viewers for consuming the content and deciding they want to move, live, visit, study, work, date, whatever there. But you're not mad at the Japanese person that encouraged and told them to. You're not mad at the lawyer that helped them get the visa. You're not mad at the Japanese person that made the channel. Nope, just the tourist or the foreigner themselves. Why? Interesting. Let's keep going. Many schools in the Kanto region, aka around Tokyo, want their students to go to Kyoto. But there are more and more that are reporting problems, said Michio Nakada, an official of the Japan School Trip Association, which arranges visits nationwide. She explained that over-tourism and rising costs had made it difficult to plan. Again, when are we going to stop with the over-tourism thing? The over-tourism thing has been a problem since the beginning of time. Even for the locals that complain about it. I said this before, but it really just irks me. It's like, why would you choose to live in a major city and then complain about tourists there? I know some people do it, but I don't really hear about it nearly as much in the US. Nobody's going to live in Chicago and then be shocked that the sidewalk is crowded. No one's going to live in New York and then be shocked, why are there so many people? The same reason why you chose to move there, other people will too. Likewise, the same reason why you chose to visit that place, other people want to visit it too. It's even funnier to me when I see other foreigners complain about the number of foreigners there, and it's like, you being there to take the photo makes you a part of the very problem you are complaining about. Yes, I agree. Over tourism sucks. A lot of people being there sucks. Everyone's experience. I agree with that. But I'm just saying, you can't really complain when you are contributing to it. Same thing goes for Disneyland and Universal Studios Japan and Disney Sea. Why do you think it's going to stay crowded? Because the same person taking the photo, showing the view of all the people there, like, oh, this is ridiculous. Over tourism. Oh my God. Okay, well, if you weren't there, there'd be one less person. For each of you that are complaining, leave the park then. And then there wouldn't be over tourism there anymore, would there? Just saying. But y'all don't want to do that. There's a reason why people want to go to these so-called tourist destinations. And these dumb failed attempts at trying to get foreigners to go other places is stupid. Because they have not built anything worthwhile to make people want to go anywhere else. Just showing us a picture or video of some beautiful land or some small mom and pop shop. Sure, some rich white person is going to be like, I want to eat their barbecue. I want to try their dirty soup and their nasty ass back of the woods restaurant. Like, somebody's going to do it. But the reality is most people are going to be like, okay, I want to go there. And they're going to look up the place and see there's nothing to do there. Okay, well, Actually, I think I'll stick with Kyoto, Tokyo. Just saying. I mean, it only makes sense. Why do you think Yokohama is never going to be on Tokyo's level? Love me some Yokohama. I would even consider retiring in Yokohama. But the reality is, Yokohama, it's more spread out, but there's less to do than there is in Tokyo. It just doesn't make sense. Why would you live next to Tokyo and choose there? Unless, I get it, you got kids, you want to save money, but you get what I'm trying to say. Nobody's going to suggest that you plan your vacation around Yokohama over Tokyo. They're just not. Is it fun to visit there? Yes. Should you make a day trip out of it? Yes. But I would never advise somebody to spend their whole vacation in Yokohama. No, that's silly. Unless you just have the money and time to do a one-off vacation where you go to just Yokohama and then come back and just go to Tokyo. That's another story. But you get what I'm trying to say. So, you're not going to get tourists to leave this area unless you give them something worth leaving it for. And the reality is it's going to be hard to do because people specifically like these major cities, not just because most people live there, but because the history and culture is typically richer in those places too. Likewise, America is the same. Typically, big cities didn't just become big cities overnight. They've been that way for sometimes centuries, sometimes at least decades. And with that said, restaurants, dances, rituals, stores, theaters, museums have been built there. There are things to do there that simply don't exist in the countryside. And sure, you can make new stuff, but I'm trying to say the new stuff isn't the same as the tradition that people want to see. And with that said, people are going to continue to flock to Kyoto and Tokyo and Osaka because they offer something that other cities in Japan simply don't. And you can even argue places like, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, etc. But again, like most people aren't going to go there because it's just one thing to see. There's a museum to see. If you know a little more, you might decide, I want to try Hiroshima, okonomiyaki or something like that. But most people aren't going to make a whole trip out of that because it's not worth it. I said it. So anyway, back on subject. Let's keep it going. Okay, I think I already read this, but we're going to read it again. She explained that over-tourism and rising costs have made it difficult to plan. Some places are so busy that the students cannot see everything, so they are very disappointed. It is very unfortunate because most Japanese parents went to Kyoto for their school trips when they were younger, and they want their children to go to the same places, she told This Week in Asia. Again, no one's stopping your child from seeing these places besides their teacher. You might have decided we don't have enough time for our trip because maybe the line is longer than they expected it to be or wanted it to be. But the real question is this. Did it ever cross your mind that these big school field trips that go to Kyoto are actually stopping tourists from enjoying their vacation? Because granted, you're Japanese. When you have to wait in line, you have the option to wait there. You can stay another day. You can come back a year later. You can come back as an adult. But for the average American or any other foreign country person, this is a once-in-a-lifetime vacation. Whatever you don't do during your trip, you will either never ever get to do, or you will struggle to do again, and you cannot just add another day onto your vacation because most of us work jobs. And the reason why we have all the money we have to pay for this food and the hotels and flights is because we took time off from work. So actually, you're in our way because you can come back here anytime. We can't. Granted, I live in Japan, but I'm saying for the average person, that's not the case. Really, they should be given the right of way. They should be first in line because for them, if they don't do this now, it's potentially never. The average tourist that you see is going to Japan for the very first time. They have not been there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And you know that by looking at the comment sections in any sort of forum, group, page, video comment section on tourism there. Because most people have never been. They don't know where to go, where to start, where to stop, what to do, what to see, what's overrated. They ask all these little silly questions because they don't know what to do. They're overwhelmed. So really, I don't feel sorry for, your Sachiko, Tado, whatever, for not being able to see something because they were impatient. They want to wait in line for 20, 30 minutes. Or because you as the teacher decided you didn't want to and you had to hurry up and make that bus back. Because the reality is, if you all really want your kids to see this, the parents can take their child there themselves. And then they can have all the time in the world. Or you as a school can decide, since the lines are longer, let's make this trip an additional day or 2 days. Let's plan it more strategically. Let's prioritize what we really want to see. Let's start our day earlier. Let's stay out later. That's actually another point. They purposefully closed that whole district rather early, which also forces everyone to go there at the same time. That's a whole nother conversation. Which again, self-sabotage. You all raise the prices, you open late, you close early, you do everything you can to literally cause the crowds to be crazy, and then you blame foreigners for it. Okay. Let's move on. Given the challenges, schools are looking at alternative destinations according to Nakara, such as Nagasaki, Kanazawa, and Ichikawa prefectures in the Tohoku region of northern Japan, where they are being encouraged to meet local people who survived the 2011 earthquake and tsunami disaster and see for themselves how communities there are rebuilding. Okay, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's actually a wonderful idea, but I also think that it's silly that you're painting this picture inside these students' minds that the reason why they can't see a very important cultural aspect of Japan is because of tourists, when that's not true. It's because of you. You decided that you wanted to plan their trip at a horrible time of year. You decided that we're not going to leave out early enough. You decided that we're not going to stay late enough. You decided, not you, the school, but you as in the Japanese, we're going to open these places late because typically nothing over there opens till 9, 10 a.m. We're going to close it early between 4 to 5 or 6 p.m. We're not going to stay open late. And on top of that, we're going to have very, 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 very limited of whatever people are trying to buy or get to. That is a recipe for disaster. We're also going to raise the prices on everything from food to the cost of staying at a hotel per night to even the bus fare. And then we're going to, just make our money. We're not going to pay our employees more either, because why would we want to do that? That would make way too much sense. We're not trying to lose money here, are we? I mean, we only raised the cost of going to the hotel 3 times the cost that it was 2 years ago, but we don't have enough to pay the employees more. We've got to make up for the pandemic. Sure. And they're actually going to mention that bullshit point later inside this article. Spoiler alert. But yeah, let's carry on and keep talking about this. A 2024 study by the Kyoto city government found that 56.06 million people visited over the course of the year, the second highest after the record of 56.84 million foreign and domestic visitors in 2015. This is the part that gets interesting. I'm actually going to backpedal on what I said earlier. It's hard to tell what information is to be believed because I've never seen consistent tourism numbers for Japan for what their real numbers are, and how they count their numbers is also interesting too, because they typically will show their tourism numbers, but both foreign and domestic combined rather than separate, whereas in the US there is the existence of both together and separate. So let's actually backtrack. Let's pretend like I'm wrong about my number. Let's say that Kyoto actually gets the same amount, if not more, than Los Angeles. But again, let's look at that. Hold on. That would mean they're getting what? About 7 million more tourists than the city of Los Angeles does? But then that still brings you back to the same thing. Are they staying there for long? They're only going to one area. That's it. So I'll admit I was wrong. I was wrong. If this is correct, and I also misspoke, this is South China Star, whatever post, but they call that the Weekend, Asia Weekend, whatever I said that it was earlier. That's still the name of it when you click on it, but it's South China Star post or whatever. I don't know whose statistic to believe inside the situation, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to assume that my original statistic was wrong. Let's assume that Tokyo has this 56 point whatever, and we're using last year's statistics because this year's not done with. We cannot give a fair number for that. But the issue that I have is it doesn't matter. I don't care if they get 70 million more tourists. The point is, all of your tourists stay in one place. It's not a countrywide thing like how they try to make it sound like it is. And also, they choose to go there at bad times. Why would you plan your school field trip in the middle of summer? Why would you plan it in the middle of cherry blossom season? You get what I'm trying to say? And I get why they want to do these things. But the reality is, it's okay, well, then you understand why tourists want to as well. Not to mention this mindset of trying to make it sound like, oh, these kids will never get to see it like their parents did. If their parents think it's so important in this rite of passage, okay, mom, dad, book a trip to Kyoto. It's very affordable to do. You could take a bus or train and get there for 3,000, 4,000 yen. If you want to take the, Shinkansen to get there, okay, about maybe 20,000 yen for the whole family, 30,000 yen, whatever, for everyone to go. Why are you trying to make this into some, oh, if they don't go now, they'll never go, and trying to, blame it on foreigners for this? That's not their fault. And unlike places like Los Angeles, where the tourists are not just going to be in Hollywood, in Japan, Kyoto is like that, where it's just concentrated in an even smaller area than that. That's it. I should also keep in mind that this is the number for the year. This is spread out, and that number includes Japanese tourists. It's not separating them, which means that inflated number includes the Japanese, meaning that we can't even say it's truly 56 million whatever tourists, because the way I see it is like this. If you're complaining about over-tourism, while not directly saying it, but alluding to the fact that you're not bothered by your own people being the tourists, you're bothered by the foreign people being the tourists, don't lump yourselves inside of your statistic to overinflate what the number is, because then that's not fair. Just saying. But again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's pretend like no Japanese are included in that number. The 56 million is 100% foreign tourists. Because let me read back and see if it says that. Does it say that that's just foreigners? Oh, this is where they get tricky. Look at how they're slick with this. It says 56.06 million people visited over the course of the year. The second highest after the record of 56.84 million foreign and domestic visitors in 2015. So you see how they are trying to make it sound like that 56 million number is specifically for foreigners. And then when they compare it to the record, they say it's a combination of foreign and domestic visitors. But the other crazy thing about this too is, how do you calculate how many Japanese visitors come to the area when there is no system of tracking Japanese people that don't live in Kyoto visiting Kyoto? You can literally take a regular train to make it all the way to Kyoto. You can also take the Shinkansen to get there. You can take the bus to get there. You can drive to get there. There's no system for registering your, trip to Kyoto. So how do you know who actually lives in Kyoto and who's visiting Kyoto from a neighboring prefecture or city? How is that calculated? Which also leads me to believe they're not calculating this fairly. They're including everyone that goes there into their numbers for foreign tourists. Because how do you know who's domestic and who's not? And yes, I'm not stupid. I know the different dialects, etc., like Kansai Ben, but we're not talking about that. They're not being like, oh, we heard Kansai Ben. Okay, like, this is a local. And Kyoto has their own way of speaking that's different from Osakans. But that's another story. So you get what I'm trying to say, how these whole statistic things are skewed. They're not even done in a clear way where I can tell exactly how many people that are not Japanese came to your country and specifically went to this city. So actually, I think I'm going to lean more towards my little 10 million number, because that actually sounds a lot more right. Because even when you go to Kyoto, contrary to what people tell you, you still see mostly Japanese people. I feel like because you're looking for foreigners, they stand out more to you. And even Japanese people, when they go to Kyoto, anybody that doesn't have a stereotypical model-looking Japanese type of face, they assume you must be a foreigner. You're Asian, but you're not Japanese. Mind you, both my ex-boyfriend, Shogo, I'm going to say these names, but that guy, and my now husband, Yuichi, I went to Kyoto with all three of them, which is crazy to think of. And with each of them, people assume they were a foreigner because they were together with me. So did they get counted into the touristy foreigner category too? How was this calculated? We'll never get a clear answer. You might even say, oh, based on when you stay at a hotel. Does everyone stay at a hotel? People do day trips. And again, this dumb assumption that the problem is just foreigners, your problem existed when foreigners weren't in the country back during the pandemic, and it persisted when the pandemic ended. It persisted before the pandemic began. Like, this is not a new issue. This is bullshit. And again, you can't give statistics if you're not going to give clear information as to who's counted and what. Because see, for the American one that I gave, that included both domestic and abroad. And the reason why I include both inside of it, because it just made sense. Because we need to understand that this place is super busy, just like how Japan is. And as an American, when we have problems with tourists, we don't care where you come from. The problem is you don't know where you're going, you're in the way, you're making the line long. So I don't care whether you're from Mexico, you're from Spain, you're from I don't know, Russia. Like, it doesn't make a difference to me. Tourist is a tourist. But in Japan, because everything has to be racial and nationality, right? We have to pretend like there's a difference between an American being a tourist and standing in line and a Japanese person being a tourist and standing in line and making you having to wait. Interesting. And again, like how I said, it sounds really selfish, ugly American, but just hear me out. Shouldn't we have more empathy and sympathy for the foreigners that are visiting on vacation? Because most people cannot extend their vacation time, day, etc. You're on a strict schedule. Most people don't come to Japan without a plan. I'm like, oh, I'll just wing it, do whatever I want. Some people do, but that's a rare thing. Most people are there and they're like, okay, I gotta see this during this time slot, and then I'll be able to do this afterwards, and then I have to be able to leave Kyoto by 3 p.m. so I can make my bus and take this train to get to Sapporo. Like, that's the way that they plan their trips. Meanwhile, for you, sure, it's your little school trip or whatever, but your mom and dad could take you back later. Your school could have planned better and got you there earlier. These businesses, you all could petition for them to open earlier and close later. You all could also petition for an expansion of businesses and stores and cultural things to do in the Kyoto area that can distract some tourists. But the reality is, even if they built those things, who do you think is going to want to go there? You think it's just going to be us? They're going to want to go too. So if you're going to complain about tourists, complain about your own people consuming and doing the same stuff. If you go to Tokyo Tower or what else? Tokyo Skytree, you think you're only going to be seeing foreigners there? And you would think that even Shibuya Sky, you would think it's just going to be us. But no, it's not. They want to see the view too. They want to plan a date there too. It's not just us. But the way that they make it sound, you would think we're the only ones that do this. We're the only ones that use this. The only thing that I will say that we pretty much are the only ones that do and use is probably the Pokemon Cafe. But beyond that, no, you go to like little anime cafes, the pop-ups, Inuyasha Cafe. Who's mostly in line? The Japanese. Just saying. So anyway, I'll admit, that's kind of a hard thing for me to talk about. Because, yeah, there's no clear statistic differentiating the two that's credible. And I don't even know how credible this article is on that topic, giving me a statistic. But back on the subject. That record may very well be broken when the figure for 2025 is determined, which I believe it will be. However, as the Japan National Tourism Organization reported this week that 3.4 million foreign tourists, there we go, see how we're getting a number, 3.4 million foreign tourists arrived in Japan in August, breaking the 3 million level for the first time. The JNTO said overall growth in inbound tourism was up 16.9% so far this year. But you see how this still becomes a skewed statistic? Notice how they're not saying out of that number of people that came to Japan, how many went to Kyoto? Because if you were to go based off the earlier number, it makes you think that many people specifically went to Kyoto. You're getting 56 million people, right? But that's including both foreigners that do not live in Japan, I assume, and Japanese people. But you're also not saying where did they go? Mostly to Tokyo, but still not all to Tokyo. You have 56 million people that are going to be divided throughout the year, throughout the country. You're not having 50 million people here at the same time. And as you see, according to the statistic, they hadn't had 3 million people in the country simultaneously since 2015. That record was just broken. But let's say that there's 3 million people there right now. Okay, let's say there's 4 million. 4 million people. That means that those 4 million people are going to be divided across the entire country. That's going to include the cities that people don't normally go to, but still go to. So you're talking about 4 million people during the month, not on one day, not on 1 week, because it's also, let's put this into perspective. Most foreigners aren't staying in Japan for 30 days or 2 weeks. Most people that are planning a trip to Japan, they're going to be there for about 3 to 5 days. 7 days typically max. Some people with money can afford the 10 to 14 days. But pretty much no one will stay for a month. Yes, I know of people that have stayed for a month. I see the posts, but that is not the average tourist. With that said, pretty much no one's going to be here for the whole month. So that means that at no given time, there are 3 or 4 million people in this country, which means the number of tourists are way smaller than you think it is. Realistically, at any given time, you're probably dealing with less than 1 million tourists within the country. But let's be fair. Let's assume that, according to this article, let's say that there are we're going to up it 1 million. Let's say that there's 4 million tourists in Japan right now. That's 4 million people that could be divided amongst like 10 different cities. You have Tokyo, you have Kyoto, you have Osaka, you have Yokohama, you have Shizuoka, which I forgot. I don't really include Saitama because I don't think that's popular enough. What else? Did I say Kyoto, Kobe, Osaka? I'm losing track of these. Sapporo, Okinawa, if I didn't already say that. Look at all of these cities. Nagasaki, Hiroshima. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, do you really think there's that many people crowding it that are foreigners? Or can we just be honest and admit it's actually mostly Japanese people doing this? Your problem with foreigners, your anger is displaced. I'm not saying you don't see them in large numbers. But like I said, if it's not them, then who? You. Like, that's what it was during the pandemic. Like, when they weren't there, you just took their place. In fact, I won't even say you took their place. You just became more visible. I saw you more easily because you're all that existed. Likewise, during the pandemic, when you saw me, I drew, your eyes to you. Your eyes were drawn to me because there were no black people there. Like, you're seeing, oh, it's a black girl, it's a foreigner. I stand out more because unlike a typical tourist day in Kyoto where you would see several black people, now you've only seen one the whole day. You get what I'm trying to say? So, whatever. Let's carry on, you all. This is so Jim Crow Uncle Tomish. I didn't even click on the video, but they literally have a video where it's titled, like, underneath it, and it says, "Tourists largely welcome ban on visitors entering," I think it says, "historical geisha district." It's literally just going to start there. And the dumber thing about it is, why do you think you deserve to be punished for the actions of a few? And again, this will be talked about later on. I have another video that will be on this topic. But something that really bothers me is seeing the Japanese take a playbook strip out of like Jim Crow law or whatever racist KKK style white people Nazi type stuff. Because this punish them all mentality is so stupid to me. You're not going to ever get everyone to obey any rule, just like you can't get all Japanese people to be good citizens, tattoo free, ear pierce, belly button, stomach piercing, nose ring free. People are going to do their own thing, even if whether they do or do not know the rules. And that's another important part that needs to be talked about, which I have a video on this that I have not uploaded and edited yet. But the people that need to know the rules do not have access to it. There are countries in which they have no access to YouTube and or Google, and China is one of them. Beyond just that, people simply are bad. Not everyone wants to follow rules. So it doesn't matter how many videos you make or posts you make or, I don't know, flyers and pamphlets you pass out or classes that you have that exist. People will do what they want to do. You will never get everyone to... Look, I'm going to give you a crazy example. Look at North Korea. We should have no videos of what it looks like inside of there. But we literally have influencers, Facebook people, Instagrammers, etc., YouTubers that have gone there, snuck video out of there, even objects out of it they should not have done. We literally saw what happened to, what's his name, Oswald or whatever. Oswald, excuse me, I don't know how you pronounce his name or say his name. I forgot how it's spelled. It starts with an O. But you get what I'm trying to say? What they did is breaking the rules and wrong. But as you can see, people don't care. They want to make content. And with that said, a lot of foreigners that go there, I won't say a lot, some foreigners that go there, they don't give a shit about the rules. They know they're not supposed to do that. You don't need somebody to explain to you, don't do, you're going to see later on, but pull-ups on a freaking torii gate, those little red gate things that you see, somebody actually did pull up, and like, they don't need you to tell them don't do that. They know not to do it. They simply don't give a shit. They want to be a headline. They want to get attention. They want to cause controversy. They want to be bad. They were raised by gentle parents who don't believe in whippings and punishments. And this is the world that you have to live in. With that said, while I get your anger at people for being disrespectful, you have to understand getting mad at everyone collectively because they're not Japanese is foolish. This mindset that only we do bad things as non-Japanese is ridiculous. The reality is more Japanese people are breaking those rules and doing these crazy things and putting graffiti out in places than a foreigner ever has or ever will. But you turn a blind eye to it because they are Japanese. And you fear the confrontation with them. But you feel emboldened or bold, encouraged, however you want to say it, to confront a foreigner. And I'll talk about that again later on. But let's keep moving. There were 21.51 million foreign arrivals in the first 6 months of 2025. The organization said, putting Japan on course to surpass the 36.9 million arrivals in 2024 and meet the government's ambitious 60 million arrivals by 2030. Let's also talk about that part there, because I didn't even catch that the first time that I read this. Do you see how they're kind of like just slipping in some gems for you, some truths? So the government literally set out and made a plan to get to 60 million tourists by 2030 per year. They want 60 million. But then you're punishing and insulting and blaming and getting angry at foreigners for visiting your country when they're only doing what you asked them to do. You made the content, you made the videos, you made the push, you asked for the overly positive representation. You strike down people like myself when we share the negative things about your country, but then you also don't want, like, you want their money, but you don't want them to be there. So you want them to donate to you all like a charity, right? But you don't want us to actually stay there. You don't want us to take up the hotels. You don't want us to book the restaurants. We can't even walk down the streets in Guyana, like, even if it's free. Like, no, you don't want us to exist there. You just want the money. Send us money, but don't actually come. That's what you're basically saying. And then their government isn't really getting any flack for it. People are taking out their anger directly with the tourists. They're being punished. And again, this collective punishment thing, where instead of it being like, no, just be strict and punish the person that's breaking the rule rather than the collective. And also ask yourself, is this rule something that should have been obvious? For example, you need to explain to somebody, don't do pull-ups on this. Or is it an innocent rule being broken, like somebody not knowing, maybe I shouldn't have made that phone call on the train, or maybe I shouldn't have been eating my soup on the bus. Which again, these things are interesting too, because when a Japanese person does it, nobody says anything. People turn a blind eye. Nobody saw it. But God forbid a foreigner wants to do that. Don't you bring your smelly McDonald's on the bus. But I literally sat next to a full Japanese dude with his girlfriend. They're eating a big old bowl of ramen on the bus. Sat next to an old man. He's drinking his stinky coffee, going right up my pregnant nose, pissing me off. And again, I don't say nothing. My husband doesn't say anything. The Japanese people around me don't say anything. Nobody even looked their direction. If I were to do it, I would get nasty stares and grunts and people telling me to die. And I couldn't do that as a foreigner. But they can. And this is even a matter of you all's racist. Oh, well, they can do it. It's their country. We're not even going to get into that fallacious argument. What I do want to talk about, though, is if you're not going to confront your own people, don't confront me. Don't confront a foreigner if you're too cowardly to do it to your own. Because the question that I have for every Japanese person that makes it to the news or, whatever, Twitter, whatever, going viral for confronting this big bad gaijin, have you ever done that to your own? They haven't. I know the answer. They just don't like foreigners. So when you do something bad, you've now enraged them. They've literally waited their whole lives for this moment. And I mean whole lives. Because the reality is, if you actually go to Japan, 9 out of 10 people are following the rules to the T better than the Japanese people are. In fact, the rules that are being broken are simple, small, little things that don't really matter. Somebody that's standing in the middle of the, walkway, not realizing that they need to move to the side. Somebody that's sitting in the wrong seat. Somebody that's talking on a train where they should be quietly. It's little things that ain't finna ruin your day. Nothing life-changing, nothing truly disrespectful. Meanwhile, they do those exact same things that I just mentioned, and nobody gets mad about it. Nobody even acts annoyed. People just mind their own damn business. But if you want to make a phone call on that train, everybody's pissed off at you. Someone will tap you and tell you to shut the fuck up. You see what I'm trying to say? There's a double standard. If they want to do it, they can, and nobody cares. It would not be newsworthy. But if you do it, it's bad. You think graffiti didn't exist at shrines and places prior to foreigners? You think we're the only people or the ones who do it the most? Nope. I mean, just try taking a walk through Shibuya or Shinjuku City, Namba, Osaka Station, Yodobashi, and let's see if you can count how many, graffiti writing, stickers, etc., tags that you see around the city. Because I know that I can't count that. Why are we only pretending to care about when we see a Vietnamese, an American, whatever, someone actually carve them and their girlfriend's initials into a piece of bamboo or something like that? Why are we pretending like, oh, now it matters? sounds a little bit racist to me because it's not the fact that what they're doing isn't bad. It's the fact that you don't care when the person that's doing the bad is Japanese, but you do care when the person doing the bad is a foreigner. That's the issue. And again, as a black person, I know this all too well. I see this in America every day. But it's actually interesting to me because I'm finally seeing white people, specifically white Americans, finally understand what it feels like to be black. Because now you see how it's unfair, how a few people make everybody fall and take the blame. You've never written you and your wife's name, carved the letters into a piece of bamboo, but now you're being treated that way. You never harassed, the geisha in the Gion district, but now you're banned from stepping foot in there, even although you're a resident. You're not a tourist, you're a foreign resident. You've been living there longer than I've been alive. You have 33 years in Japan, but they don't give a shit. You look like a tourist, so you're banned. Even the fact that you have to prove yourself and explain, well, look at my residence card. Look, I speak Japanese. That's insulting and dehumanizing. I don't want to have to do that. But whatever, let's carry on. We're almost done. That many arrivals may equate to a windfall for businesses and government, but there are some serious negative consequences, according to Masaru Takayama, president of Kyoto-based Spirit of Japan Travel. Again, notice the people over these things are Japanese. They know that the problem is not the tourists themselves. They know that the problem is the greed of the businesses, but they will not directly say that. They just keep trying to say, well, we know it's going to be good for the businesses, but, oh, this is bad for the locals. Why not call out the businesses being greedy? Is hurting both the tourists because it's costing them more money. The money they're spending to stay in these hotels and eat at these restaurants, they could be spending to support artists. They could be spending to go to museums. But you all aren't focusing on that part of it. See, the Japanese aren't dumb. They're intentionally not blaming themselves. They're intentionally not blaming the hotels, not blaming the restaurants, not blaming the government. They don't want it to be the government's fault that they're trying to attract more people to make money. They don't want to blame the restaurants and hotels that they're the ones raising the prices so that they can make more profits. They're not calling out these hotels and restaurants for not paying their staff more. They're not calling them out for charging foreigners different rates than the Japanese while also not providing better services, more amenities, or more English, Chinese, English, Korean, whatever, Spanish translations. They're not being held accountable. And they know what they're doing. They just don't want to. Meanwhile, your everyday Japanese person, they don't have enough brains to think about what's wrong in the situation. Now, what I'm saying sounds harsh or whatever to you, but hear me out. I mean this when I say it. Their culture teaches them to lose their brains and to mindlessly follow the media. They're not literally, I'm not going to say they're not capable. It's hard for them to understand the concept of thinking for yourself. If the media says you should trust and believe something, they do it blindly. And it's really funny because in America, a lot of us feel that way about our media, but you clearly haven't spent a day living in Asia. So anyway, back to the video. I don't know why. Why are we pretending like the problem is the existence of foreigners in these spaces and not the fact that there's this price gouging going on by these wealthy, rich-ass billionaire Japanese people, billion and millionaires who own these hotels, who own these restaurants? And sure, not every restaurant owner is a multimillionaire, but they're definitely well off doing well financially. Why are we pretending like they're not being greedy? They recognize tourists are coming here because it's cheap, so let's raise our prices because while it's cheap for them, it's expensive for us. We think 10,000 yen is expensive in Japan, but as a tourist, you're like, oh, it's just $57? Like, what a great deal. You see what I'm trying to say? They don't care about pricing you out. They don't mind. Look, if all they finna attract is tourists, they might require the staff to have to speak Spanish and English in order to work there. They don't give a shit. And they're not going to pay the staff more either. They don't give a shit about whether you get to eat there or not as a Japanese. They're going to just tell you, well, get your pockets up. And you know what the restaurants are going to do? They're going to deflect, realistically. They're not going to tell you get your pockets up. They're going to deflect. They're going to say, oh, I'm sorry. There's so many tourists here. We had to raise... And you all are too damn stupid to realize, no, the existence of more people here is not causing the prices to go up. Your idea, your mindset of, if we're selling out at 2,000 yen, let's try 4,000. If 4,000 yen is still selling out, let's go to 6,000 yen. If 6,000, how much, it's like, how low can you go? How much can you pay? Like, they will keep raising the price. And as long as y'all dummies keep allowing them to trick you, Because what they're doing is they're voting with their dollars differently than how they're responding to you. Because see, they'll pretend like, oh yeah, we agree. Yeah, it's really just unfortunate. There's so many tourists here. So, yeah, like, the over tourism. Do you think they're voting on behalf of these racist, prejudiced, politicians trying to put Japan first, as they're saying? Hell no. Because Japan first means my pocket's finna be dry. They know that this will hurt their business. Not that their business was ever hurting, but they're greedy. They want more money. The same thing you accuse the Chinese, the Nigerians, the Jamaicans, the Koreans of. I think you might want to take out a little bit of like a clown mirror and look at yourselves in the face and realize, oh, we too are greedy and evil and money hungry. The same things we accuse everyone else of, we are too. Oh, it's not just the foreigners that do this. We too prioritize money over our own people. They're trying to pull on their people's heartstrings, as well as foreigners' heartstrings, by painting it as, look at the poor Japanese schoolgirl who'll never experience Kyoto. When in actuality, the businesses are like, I got them suckers. Wow, we were able to charge the price for 5 rooms for 1 because of these rich-ass foreigners. Meanwhile, you as the foreigner, you're like, well, that was my souvenir money, but we needed a place to stay. So, this is just so funny. It's sad, but it's funny. Let's keep going. In Kyoto, it is just getting worse and worse, he said. The hotels have all increased their prices, at least doubling in the last couple of years, and often tripling, as they try to make some money back after losing so much during the coronavirus pandemic, he said. Let me stop right there. I kind of already talked about this earlier, but notice how when they said that, they had to add a bunch of extra bullshit talk to justify the price increase instead of just saying they realize they can charge more because after the pandemic, the yen tanked before, but really started to tank. And now we have all these people that are happy to be able to travel again and they're all coming in. And now we have TikTok and there's all of this positive promotion for Japan. So now these businesses are being greedy and capitalizing off it. They didn't phrase it that way. Instead, it's, well, they're just trying to make up for the lost wages and they're just trying to meet the demand of the tourists. See how they're deflecting it and making it sound like this is not a moral failure of the Japanese. This is not a matter of greed. They're not greedy people. They just want to make back what they lost. That's what they're saying to you. And y'all eating that shit up. Y'all drinking the Kool-Aid. What would you call that in Japan? You're drinking the sake. You're drinking the oolong tea, the green tea. Y'all not even questioning it. It's just oh, makes sense to me. Yeah, pandemic. Wasn't that now, I don't know, 3-4 years ago at this point? When do we stop pretending like this is a matter of making up lost wages at this point? Because actually, the money was only lost for technically the first year. By year 2, they had plenty of Japanese people traveling. By year 3, they had both. Okay, we're now 4 or 5 years removed from the pandemic. Let's just be real here. You're being greedy. But we can't say that. They're Japanese. You don't want to confuse them with a Jamaican or some evil black person. They don't do things like that. They don't steal from people. They would try to gouge you and take extra money for no reason. They're only charging more money at these restaurants because they have to hire English-speaking staff. Even although the staff still don't speak English, even although the menus are still outdated, and conveniently, the menus are outdated and old, but the prices are for some reason higher on the old menu than on the new menu. Even though the prices of everything has gone up. Oh, but they would never charge more for a foreigner. The Japanese don't do that. You have them mixed up with the Chinese. That's a Korean strategy. They don't do that. Don't blame that on them. You can't tell the difference because you think all Asians look alike. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, excuse me. Let's keep going. But that has to be passed on to the schools, of course. And it's becoming too expensive for many of them to come here. What's becoming too expensive? Transportation hasn't changed that much in price. Hotels have, but you don't have to stay at a hotel. You can literally do a day trip. You can also stay at an affordable hotel. You don't have to stay at the West End or some shit. I know that's hard to believe, but what is it, APA, APA, whatever, like their prices have gone up, but they're still actually rather affordable. Also, you can require that the parents pay for these things too, which I'm sure they do pay somewhat, but you know what I mean. Notice that they're also, again, pulling on your heartstrings by using the students. Instead of just saying, we can't, as in the regular average Japanese, see, nobody would care. You're an adult, you've already been before, you can save the money going your own. They know that if you say the students, the kids, because see, they don't have jobs, they're innocent. They need to see where the capital is. They gotta see Kyoto. So what do? They use the students, the poor schoolgirls and boys. They're not going to know where they came from. They're not going to see the fallen city. Look at what you tourists are doing. They're trying to paint this picture to make you feel like you are a monster and this is your fault. It's not the hotels being greedy. They just have to make back the money they lost. And once they make it back, the prices will go down. That's all it is. They're not overcharging just to be greedy. They don't want extra money. That's why the restaurants that are charging you 3,000 and 5,000 yen more because you're a foreigner, they're now giving you bigger portions too. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, they didn't? Oh, they didn't make the new menu like they said they were going to? Oh, they didn't hire the bilingual or foreign staff so they can actually speak to you because they are charging you 4,000 yen extra for these services, aren't they? Aren't they going to make improvements for their foreign diners? Oh, they're actually seating you in the dirty old chairs, but you're paying 4,000 yen more. Oh, they're not responding to you when you press the little bell button? Oh, they're still tagging on an additional 1,000, 2,000 yen with mystery charges? And we're not talking about the little, what do they call the little cover charge or whatever for you sitting there. No, we're not talking about those. I mean, you look at your bill and you're like, I didn't order 3 drinks. We only ordered 1. You must have made a mistake. The Japanese don't do that, y'all. You don't know what you're talking about. I've been living in Japan for 40 years. That's never happened before. I know the Japanese. I am the Japanese. Let's keep going. According to Kyoto City statistics, 750,000 Japanese pupils visited the city in 2024, down from 810,000 the previous year. Where's the world's smallest violin? Okay. I mean, it's not even 100,000 people. And again, the assumption that you've never been to Kyoto because you didn't go on your school trip is also bullshit. So when you all went, do y'all not see families there? I mean, I see babies, little kids, middle-aged kids and mommy and daddy. Are we going to pretend like they don't go there on their own? Are children only allowed to go to Kyoto if they're on a field trip? See how they're trying to paint this? And that's why I said the number of tourists don't even matter at this point. Because let's just be real. Also, you all take pride in being patient and polite and kind. So why can't y'all wait in line? Why can't you all plan the trip further in advance so you can get a better deal on the hotel price? Why can't the hotels offer a special rate for schools? I didn't even think about that. Why not? I know the hotels thought about it, and I also know that they were like, hell no. To the no. Because they're like, what want to get y'all little badass kids out? Fucking no. You want to have a school field trip, use some of them tax dollars to cover it then. If the hotels care and y'all don't want to use tax dollars, they can lower the rates. They can make the stay free for you all. They can prioritize you all. If it's between you and a white American, black American, whatever, somebody trying to book, they can say, you can have that room if a Japanese student doesn't need it. Will they do that? Money talks. They don't want badass kids inside the hotel because you want to know why? Y'all don't pay for extra services. Y'all gonna go there, tear up the room. You're not gonna pay for the massages, the extra food. You're just there for a place to sleep. You know who's not just there for a place to sleep? The Americans, the Aussies, the Canadians. They're gonna spend extra money at that hotel. They're gonna try, what is a room massage like? What is this, shortcake taste like? They're gonna do different things. They're gonna bring in more money. Just saying. Let's carry on. I should also add one more thing. The unfair part about that statistic, really big point that I didn't even think of. The childbirth rate is down. So wouldn't that make the number of students each year going to decrease? Because each year there's going to be less kids that are in that grade. Mind blowing, right? If you're having less babies each year, why would there be the same number of students visiting a place? But you see how easy it is to trick you as a weeboo listening to this and the Japanese alike? Because y'all don't use your brains. This is why it's important to go to college. See how you can think like how I do? You can use a little bit of, little noodle energy up there. Noodle, do the noodle dance. Like, you can think about it like, That's what I said about the statistic. I'll be fair and let's say that I'm wrong and the statistic that I have is incorrect and they actually do have 56 million, which means they have almost nearly 10 million. What is that? 7 million more than Los Angeles does. But you see how even if I give them that, all the bullshit they're saying starts to fall apart and you realize this whole article is biased and full of shit. And it's not just the article. This is how their news runs in Japan. They literally skew statistics, skew data to make you feel a certain way. And people don't think for themselves. They run with the media and feel strongly about this stuff. And they think, the solution is get rid of these tourists. They're causing our prices to go up. Just like I made a post before, and I'm going to make a video on this topic, but then pretending like tourists are pricing them out of housing because these rich Chinese people are buying these houses. Like, keyword, rich. The average Japanese person can't afford what these Chinese people are buying. Now, if you want to say rich Japanese people are being priced out by the Chinese, that's a different argument, which that's not the argument that was being made. But let's also say this too. Let's pretend like that is the argument being made. Wouldn't the issue be the management company or the homeowner that's selling it? Because they can decide, we'll sell this place to you if one of our locals don't want to buy it first. Or we'll only sell a certain number of places to people that are not Japanese and don't live in Japan. But they're not going to do that. Why? But they happen to be, greedy. Oh, no, of course not. The Japanese are not greedy people. Like, you have to understand, it's a part of Japanese culture. They don't prioritize money. Everything's about fellowship and culture. Like, they don't do anything with the mindset of trying to get money off of you. Got them mixed up with the Chinese. So anyway, let's keep going. Takayama admits that some foreign tourists are still causing headaches. It seems like we read about something happening every day, he said. The foreign tourists that I speak with say they have read about incidents and they are keen to point out that they would never do something like that. But there are still some who do not know how to behave. But everyone gets the blame. I partially agree with that. I agree with the everyone gets the blame part. But first of all, what an ignorant question to ask foreigners that you're around as a Japanese person. As if you all don't break rules when you go to Hawaii and New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco and even Canada, because you all love doing pervasive stuff when you guys go abroad. We just don't talk about it in our news here because we actually talk about real things like actual crime instead of hiding ours like how you guys do. Which is the reason why their news is even filled with dumb shit like this, because they're distracting their people from the real issues like the yen being worth shit, their food prices going up. Instead, the focus is solely on let's be mad at tourists. Let's blame them. They're the reason why the food prices are going up. They're the reason why we can't afford hotels or rent or energy or anything else. They're to blame. And you all, as smart as you are, you're not capable of thinking for yourself when it comes to your social and political issues or financial issues. You weren't taught to be a critical thinker, so I don't fully blame you. It's your culture. Thus, it's easy to manipulate people that don't know how to think for themselves. And this is why I said to myself, I'll never belong to a political party. Because exactly what I'm saying about the Japanese, if you're laughing and thinking, oh yeah, they are dumb. If you're a Democrat or Republican, you're just as stupid as they are. Because those two parties do the exact same motherfucking thing. If you have a brain, you would honestly say there's things you agree with on both ends. You don't have to like all of the people on both sides. But I most certainly have listened to Republicans talk and be like, preach, my nigga. And I've listened to, I'm saying Japanese people, to Democrats talking, I'm like, damn right. Like, you see what I'm trying to say? I've also heard things where I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I completely disagree. Because I'm capable of thinking for myself. I don't want a party making all the votes and thinking on my behalf. I instead want to be like, I agree with this part of what you're saying, but I don't like that. Or most of what you're saying is right, so fine, I'll give you my vote. But for you, no, most of what you're saying is wrong. I can't give you my vote, or I want to vote for you, but I don't agree with this part. But most of you just blindly vote for one part or the other, and Americans get super anal over this. Very similar to how Japanese people get very offended when you compare them to the Chinese, which is interesting because that might actually be an insult to the Chinese, because you all think that you're in control and you're not. Your government controls you all's media just as strictly as the Chinese does. The difference is you all don't know you're being controlled. The Chinese do. They know they're being manipulated. When you meet Chinese people that are living abroad or that have traveled abroad, they will tell you about how wonderful Instagram and YouTube and Google and video games are. And porn. And a lot of you guys don't know they're not allowed to do any of those things. There is no pornography legally in China. Video games just recently kind of became a thing. Like the American ones and Japanese ones that you all see. But yeah, those are not a thing in China. No Google. Can you imagine your life without Google and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook? Yeah, China doesn't have that. They have other apps, but they're not the same. No Chinese person you meet will tell you, I'd rather use our apps than American apps. Unless you're talking to a robot. If you're talking to a real person, they're not going to say that to you. They prefer ours by far. One of the first things my Chinese roommate did when she came to Japan, she immediately downloaded Instagram, made an Instagram account, started using Google. There is a world of information that's being hidden from them, which is also a big part of why I think you all deal with a lot of them doing stereotypical, rude, bad behavior type stuff. Because they don't have access to what they are supposed to do. They don't know that what they're doing is wrong or offensive. And again, not just that, some people just don't fucking care, just like Japanese people. They know, nigga, why you clipping your toenails on the train at 8 a.m.? Why are you drinking on the train? Why are you trying to start a fight with the person next to you because they accidentally stepped on your shoe? They know what they're doing is wrong. They just don't care. Okay, if you can understand that Taro and Sachiko have bad days or have bad personalities, don't give a shit about the rules, then what about that do you not understand about Becky and Ken or Shaniqua and Tyrone or Enrique and Erica? Like, they do the same things as you. Some people want to follow all the rules to the T. Other people don't know what the rules are and make mistakes. And other people, they simply do not know any of the rules and did no research. Which, FYI, not everybody is a loser who sits in front of the computer all day just watching content on Japan. No offense to my subscribers. But I mean, like, people act like you're supposed to know all 6,000,001 of the written and unwritten rules. You should be able to read, speak, write Japanese kanji, hiragana, katakana, understand all the different dialects, all the different slangs, understand the cultural nuances and everything prior to coming there. That's the rules you all basically have told us. Then you all lie to yourselves, oh, I did a little study in Japanese. Bitch, you know 5 words and 3 sentences that don't nobody even fucking say. Completely unnatural Japanese. I can assure you, yes, they did the little, oh, sugoi, like, but bitch, your little 2-second Japanese learning lesson did not prepare you for your trip. Please stop lying to us about that. And also, let's get this bullshit out of the way. That is a racist bullshit excuse by moving the goalposts and saying, well, if they could speak Japanese, they wouldn't have these problems. Right. And if black people just stopped sagging their pants, the KKK would leave them alone. That's how stupid you sound. But anyway, let's move on. I think that one important point in what he said before I move on is the fact that most of the people that he met with are saying they would never do something like that. And that's the truth. That's why I said that. Most people that you meet have never done anything like that. Don't even know someone that's done anything like that. And the issue is, when you are a racist, you obsess over the faults of the people that you do not like. Your goal is to discriminate, to oppress, to try to categorize these people. So you look for the one-off persons doing something wrong. I think of it this way. You ever got like a new car, or it could be somebody's car in your family, right? Like driving with your mom or dad. After they get that car, when you're going around, it seems like everyone suddenly has that vehicle. But the reality is, you're not seeing that vehicle more often. You're just now paying more attention to that car because now you own it or someone in your family does. So it's more recognizable to you. Someone in your family just got it, so it's more recognizable to you. You're looking for that car subconsciously. Same thing goes with relationships. If you're in an interracial relationship, you probably find yourself noticing biracial children more. You find yourself noticing mixed race couples more. You find yourself noticing the partner of the opposite race of you, whatever, more. You're more keen to notice these things because now you're looking for it. You might think, I'm not looking for it, but you are. Your brain is. That's why you're noticing it more. It's not suddenly becoming more of a thing. People aren't just suddenly buying these cars more. People aren't feeling inspired to get married or date the same time around you or have an interracial relationship. It's just that because now you have something to do with it, you see it more. Well, in this case, when you make up your mind, foreigners are your problem, they're the bad guys, I don't like them, guess what? Anytime you see them do something bad, you are going to feel the need to highlight it, fixate on it, and act like this is everyone. This is the same reason why in the U.S., when we have things dealing with people pew-pewing and ending people's lives, white people won't acknowledge the fact that, since they like to say usual suspects, they completely gloss over the fact that school life enders are usual suspects. And instead it's easier to say, oh, they're Democrats. Oh, they're trans. Which these things may be true. But what's the common denominator that loops Democrats and transsexuals together in this situation? What race are they? Oh, interesting how usual suspects only goes for black people, but we don't use it for white people. Same thing for the big bad T word. What would you consider the Klansmen, the Nazis, etc.? Like, are they not T words too? Oh, I forgot you. Only Middle Eastern people can have that category. They're the only ones that get that label. We'd never call a white person that. Just saying. So anyway, I think that question is silly and ridiculous to ask. Would you do this? Or to even say, why do people like to, how exactly did he say that? Oh, I should also acknowledge that we read something about it every day. Well, yeah, if you choose to only highlight these offenses that are being done by foreigners, you will read about it every day. It's not the fault of the people doing it. It's the fault of your media highlighting it. If you choose to ignore the people that are reporting crimes of people raping them, molesting them, touching them, filming them, like how they do with 99% of the ones that basically they claim they can't find the person, they're not going to report it. It's not going to make the news unless they have the bad guy. And even then, they have to decide, is it worth it to share this news? We're only going to share it in the news if the person that, the what do they call it, the perpetrator, whatever, the person that was inflicting the harm, whether it be physical, sexual, psychological, whatever, only if they're an American. The military guys. Only if it's a foreigner. Only if it's a Chinese, Korean, a non-Japanese person. Then it'll make the news. It will conveniently be able to find the person too. And will believe the person too, even although sounds pretty consensual to me. So you mean you dated this person, you ate with them, you decided to go back to hotel with them, you stayed in the room with them, you didn't leave, but then for some reason days later you feel like you got R'd. Sounds to me like you regretted sleeping with the person, but makes sense to me. Let's book them. Meanwhile, as a foreigner, you can literally be locked in a hotel room with somebody, refuse to do things, not be allowed out unless you do, and you report that person. It's like, well, you went there with them, didn't you? Well, it sounds consensual to me. Night and day difference. Interesting. Just saying. If you choose to only look at and focus and acknowledge the things that the group you don't like or that you believe are, it's basically bias, that you believe they're bad, they're doing these things, that is who you're going to focus on. There's a case in the U.S. where there was this old white lady who got away temporarily, well, for a while, but doing her little drug business because people assumed she's a little old, innocent white lady. They don't do things like that. That's a black activity. If you were to have seen her and a black guy walk out of the house at the same time, who do you think the police are going to run after and tackle? The black guy, because he's the one who does the drugs, right? White people don't do that. That's black stuff. She's too old. She's white. And because of that bias and stereotyping, people get away with stuff all the time. This is a prime example of it. I can assure you, I have seen way more Japanese people vandalize, eat, talk, block at the path, start fights and arguments, film in public, talk on the phone in public. I've seen whole Zoom meetings, whole makeup sessions, girls spraying perfume, everything on the train and bus. But that's not going to make the news. It's a Japanese person. I've also never seen anyone stand up and confront them. Because people don't care when they're Japanese. It only matters when they're not. So I'm sorry, what's this guy's name again? I forgot what his name was. Mr. Takayama, I believe was a man. I can't remember if it's a man or woman's name. We're going to call him Mr. Let's just say Takayama-san. I'm sorry, but you're showing bias. You're not showing anything factual. You're just proving what I'm saying, which is the fact that your news highlights and fixates on the foreigners who do these things, which to the average dumb Japanese person, your brain does not say, what about the Japanese people that do this? It doesn't say, hey, actually, I saw somebody doing that exact same thing on the train this morning and they were Japanese. Instead, they think, well, if the news is only reporting foreigners acting crazy and only showing foreigners taking the picture of Mount Fuji at 7-Eleven, or not 7-Eleven, at Lawson's, and it's only showing the foreigners standing in the street and not the Japanese people that even encouraged and started that whole pose and movement, what do you think is going to happen? Naturally, people think this is a foreigner problem. People think Japanese people aren't standing in the middle of the road to take a picture of this stupid Lawson in front of the mountain, or to get a picture of themselves in front of the view of Mount Fuji. And, you know, the infamous photo where you stand right at that street at the right angle and it looks like Mount Fuji looks really huge and beautiful behind you. We're not the ones who started doing that. We're definitely not the ones who made it popular. But you want to know what? After they made it popular, who took it and ran with it? Us. And see, as soon as you as a foreigner start doing it too, now it's not cool. Like I said, bring it back to crime in the US. It's okay to be a mobster. It's okay to have, vandalizing groups, like, because they try to act like BLM is, right? When they're white, it's okay. When it's, Klansmen and Nazis. But when you do it, you're all criminals. And I saw an interesting post actually by a white person. And my question is this. How about we make, because they want to say, well, somebody did a map showing minority cities, and a white person said, how about you show an overlay of the crime in the United States? And so they were trying to imply that all the cities that were black are also where all the crime happens. And then a white person said, how about we do an overlap of all of the, I think it was like Europeans who did not, well, I can't remember the exact words, basically said that they were not served, like they didn't receive justice or whatever, in the sense of they weren't charged for the crimes they committed. Which is very true. See, you want to play the criminal usual suspects game when it's not you. But if we want to talk about usual suspects when it comes to colonialism, and let's keep it real, because what were most slave masters? They were P-words. They were torturers. They were abusers. Your ancestors that you're proud of and waving your little Confederate flag, what does that represent? You think that they were just effing and impregnating adult black women? You'd be a fool. But see, we can't say that. We can't have that conversation. It's going to offend the whites, right? But you see what I'm trying to say? See how stupid that conversation becomes? See, the game can only be played when it's not about your race. And see, with the Japanese, we can play the game of who breaks the most rules, what we're going to do between other foreign countries. But if we want to throw the Japanese into that mix too, then the game is no longer played. Then it's like, oh, that's different. Well, they're Japanese. And maybe she had to put on her makeup because she's running late for an interview. Okay, maybe the foreigner that's doing that, she has a photo shoot that she planned for her vacation, her tourist trip. So why is it okay for Sachiko can put on makeup on the train, but Becky can't? Why? I mean, they're putting on the same makeup, they're not making any noise, and I don't smell anything. I think it's ghetto, but I mean, if Sachiko can do it, why can't Becky? I don't see an issue with it. If there's nothing wrong with sitting next to Big Back Sachiko, why is Big Back Becky unacceptable? Now why is it impossible to sit next to her because she's too big? I don't see people, people don't necessarily prefer to sit next to you, but I don't see people outright avoiding necessarily people that are just a little overweight. Granted, as long as you're not noticeably taking up like 3 seats. But even then, okay, we'll sit in the 4th seat then. Like, the bench is wide enough for that. These aren't like individual bucket seats on the train most of the time. See how they make up these excuses? and we just eat them. We just eat them all up. I'm just saying. See, the game ain't fun when you gotta play it too. It's okay when you're just gonna look at foreigners, but then when we try to look at you all, interesting that we have pretty much no stories or articles on Japanese people R-ing and doing bad stuff to Japanese girls against their will. In fact, to be honest with you, I can probably count on one hand the stories I've come across. I can assure you that happens way more than just 3 to 4 times a year or out of a decade. But it's intentionally done that way. But see, there's a disdain and hate for the U.S. military. So even if a story sounds like bullshit, they're going to push it. They're going to believe it because they don't like their presence there. And the men there, they fetishize after these girls. They don't know much about Japanese culture because they're in the military. They're not spending all their time watching YouTube videos and reading books on it. They just had a love for anime and video games as a kid and watched too much porn and hentai, and they want to experience a Japanese girl. They didn't even consider the idea of being thrown under the bus and used and lied on. I'm going there. So it's just crazy to me how you can do an article like this and you can do your little fake research and doesn't cross your mind. Are we only hearing about this group because they're targeting them? Is it true that only foreigners are doing this? Are they really doing this in large numbers where it's really a big deal? Or, think about it. Considering that there's 56 million people coming here or more per year, why don't we hear about more of these cases then? If this is really such a huge touristy problem. Because realistically, we probably get about maybe 1 to 2 big stories about bad tourists per week. At best. Which means a very minuscule, microscopic number of people are breaking the rules. And we're going to pretend like it's everyone to the point where now we have to ban people from whole restaurants, whole streets. And that shouldn't even be legal. That literally sounds like Jim Crow type stuff. And again, their feelings would be hurt if the U.S. ever did that. Imagine if we decided, you know what, Japanese people are ruining Hawaii culture, which they kind of have. They crowd the fuck out of the place. They bring their businesses, which actually gets rid of Hawaiian culture. They buy properties there. They plan big touristy groups. They don't learn how to speak English before they go. They have whole organizations where they literally just travel together. I actually dated somebody that did that. To Hawaii. With a bunch of people that don't speak shit. They just stay together. Eat their sushi. Take their pictures. Buy their little Trader Joe's bags. I'm going there. And again, they don't see a problem with them contributing to those issues in the U.S. But those same people that were just, doing a little whatever dance and having a little fun and being perverts abroad and hoeing it out and taking nasty pictures of the hula girls, they will come back to Japan and act like they're so offended by these nasty, evil American military men and so angry. Like, how dare you all charge more for these places? How dare you all contribute to over-tourism? But they don't see that their doo-doo stink. They don't see that you're contributing to over-tourism in Hawaii and New York and Los Angeles in San Francisco. They don't want Naomi Osaka to play for Japan, but they want us to accept, what's his name? Shohei Ohtani? Interesting how his scandal quickly got brushed under. Nobody accused him of being dirty. Instead, can you believe the Japanese? I made a video on this already. I think I did at least. I know I talked about it on Patreon. The Japanese tried to paint it as though the Americans were sabotaging him because they were jealous. We all know that was Shohei who did that. And his translator was the fall guy to keep Japan's image up. God forbid Naomi Osaka even tried that. She would have been permanently hated for life. But, of course I got that all wrong because that's not what happened. Shohei is Japanese. They don't scam. They don't lie. They don't gamble. They don't scheme. They're not greedy. That's a very American, Chinese, Korean personality trait right there. You've got it all wrong. Let's carry on. We're almost done. Security officers have been deployed in Kyoto's Gion Geisha district after mobs of tourists repeatedly hounded the young women as they were on their way to engagements and others, walking into private homes while officials at Chionin Temple. the main place of worship of the Kyoto sect of Buddhism, were incensed in June last year, when two graffiti characters 18 centimeters high, actually bothered to the measurement, were scratched into a wooden pillar. Okay, let's quickly gloss over this. What's the purpose in having them go out being seen in the open if you don't want nobody to take pictures or videos of them? Let's also be honest. Pictures and videos of them existed before tourists ever took or did that little incident. Do tourists do that every day, or was that a one-off incident where some random Europeans, Americans, whatever, happened to have hounded these people, allegedly? Did we have video showing exactly how it happened? Because the only video that I've ever seen was the one of the infamous older white lady, who clearly is older and likely doesn't use YouTube, had no idea that was inappropriate to do. Not to mention, let's also keep it real. This is done to get attention. Why do you think they go outside and do all that in the first place? It's not necessary for them to go. In fact, if you actually do research into what they're supposed to be doing and how their whole thing's supposed to go, they're not supposed to really spend a lot of time out there in the first place. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? Let's say that this is a normal thing. They have to pass this area. They have to go outside. They need to be out there for a while, long enough for people to even be able to take pictures and ask for videos, etc. Why is no one mad about the fact that Japanese people took these pictures and videos first, which is why we even know what they look like? Why are we pretending like this is now a problem when foreigners do it? I don't know about you, but if not for YouTube, I don't think I've ever even read the rules for being around geisha. I don't think I've read anything saying that I cannot photograph or take videos of them. I don't know about you, but look, I'm going to say it bluntly and disrespectfully. If I see somebody, well, we're going to say it nicely because we're on YouTube. If I see somebody that's walking around outside and I'm on vacation wearing some sort of tribal traditional outfit and some exotic weird looking makeup, what do you think I'm going to do? What do you think a Japanese person would do? Naturally, they would think, let me take a video, let me take a picture, let's commemorate the moment. I might even ask them, can we take a picture together? Let's also be real and acknowledge, I'm pretty sure photos and videos exist of geisha willingly taking photos with people that asked. So when you consider all of that, the fact that these people are older and don't know any better because they don't use social media, there is not a lot of content, if not anything at all, that tells you the rules of being around them, and the simple fact that the people that you've seen share these photos and videos were Japanese, so you thought it was okay, and you've seen them take photos and videos with foreigners, so you thought, I can do this too. Is that not misleading? But it's much easier to blame the foreigner for being ignorant and rude and disrespectful, right? I'm just being way too balanced and fair here. I just don't get it. I'm wrong, of course. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Let's move on. Also, let's be honest. Would these people know that these are private homes, or does everything kind of look the same inside the Gion district? And again, this highlighting of the graffiti thing. If you're not going to care about the graffiti caused by Japanese people at these shrines, the bad behavior of young Japanese people, both teenagers and adults that are college-age students and even older, acting crazy, being drunk, if we're not going to care about their bad behavior at shrines and temples and out in the general public, why do we need to overanalyze the foreigners who are displaying bad behavior? In fact, if anything, shouldn't you feel shame on your own country's people because they're setting a bad example for the tourists that visit there when they do these things in front of them? Again, go to Shibuya, Osaka, Namba, all these different places, and you will see all of this Japanese graffiti everywhere. So if you don't care to fix that problem, why pretend to care about this problem? I'm just saying. Also, I have to add, in a lot of these situations, no video exists proving that a foreigner did this. We're just told it was a tourist. We're just told it was a foreigner based off of what the behavior was. And we're just supposed to blindly believe it was one of us. And then most of us are too stupid to realize it doesn't matter who did it. We're all in the same boat. And we start pointing fingers. Oh, it was a Chinese person. No, it must have been an American. As if they give a shit. They just come away from the situation like, oh, foreigners are bad. You all are too busy fighting amongst yourselves. It's no different than black people caring about who has the better hair, light skin, dark skin, light colored eyes, dark colored eyes. You think a Klansman give a shit about that? They don't. You're fighting over the wrong stuff. You've been brainwashed, hoodwinked, manipulated, bamboozled. You're worried about the wrong thing. Anyway, moving on. In August, a foreign tourist was filmed doing pull-ups on a torii gate, which I talked about earlier, at Atago Shrine in nearby Ikeda City. While videos shared on social media showed a foreign man arguing with and pushing an elderly Japanese who asked him to give up his priority seat on a train in Tokyo. I wonder if that's the video that I want to talk about next with the Spanish guy. But let me just combine both of these. Again, the torii gate thing, that's inappropriate. It's bad. We're not going to argue on that. But again, is he the first or last person to do it? And has a Japanese person never done this before? Do we know? Of course not, because they'll never tell us. But the reality is, okay, did the gate fall down? Did he break it? No. Is it disrespectful? Yes. Should he have done it? No. But again, okay, we're going to act like some one-off ignorant white guy doing something now makes all bad? They all need to be banned now because of him? So by your own rules and standards, do we ban all Japanese people from going to school in Canada because they record pornographic videos of innocent, sometimes even underage college students living on campus? Sneaking into the girls' showers? Do you guys know about that story? Because they really did kind of, gloss over that. It was never mentioned in Japan. Do we now ban them from going to Hawaii because many of them go there for sex tourism? Are they banned from the Philippines or India because they go there for sex tourism too? Pretty much anywhere Japanese men like to vacation is for sex tourism. But do we ban them for that now? All of them? Because that's what all of them do? Or would you consider that as stereotyping and unfair because just because Taro does that doesn't mean Hito does? Just because Sachiko is scamming white guys in America doesn't mean Aki is doing that. I mean, maybe that just makes too much sense because clearly it's much easier to just say everybody is bad. One person's bad, they're all bad. 3 people do it, everybody does it. 10 people do it, 100, 200, 1,000, 1 million. That's got to be every Japanese person that exists. Let's just group them all together. Let's move on. If that is about that video, here goes the reality. Priority seats are supposed to be reserved for the elderly. But you're not required to give up your seat. You're asked to do it. There is no law saying that you legally must relinquish your seat. Is it unfair to continue sitting there? Yes. Is it rude? Yes. Do you have to give up the seat? No. Not to mention, as a Japanese person, would you go up to a Japanese man and tell him to give up his seat, or a Japanese woman? No, you would not. Because 1, you know that they know they shouldn't be sitting there. 2, if they don't know, you don't want to start confrontation with them, so you're just going to leave them be. And 3, you can't see everyone's disability. They can be pregnant, they can have heart issues, they might have a broken arm or leg. Not everything's visible to you, and it's none of your damn business. So why are you getting up and confronting anyone to tell them to move? Not to mention, if this is the article about the Spanish man, can we talk about, it's so weird being a black person and seeing people that aren't black get treated like they're black. I shouldn't even care because this does not involve me. But see, I'm not dumb enough to think that because this person's white or Spanish that it has no effect on my life. It does, because I'm still a foreigner. So here goes my issue. Notice how they don't mention the fact that this man didn't just get up out of his seat and nicely say, "I'm sorry, but can you please move? There's an elderly Japanese person." Maybe I just didn't, and I didn't see the whole video, but I saw the video that went viral, okay? I didn't see anyone standing anywhere near him waiting for a seat. I didn't see anyone walk up to him and ask to sit in his seat. And also, even if someone did, he's not required to give up his seat. You should do it. They encourage you to do it, but you don't legally have to. And if you don't legally have to, that means that you have the right to say no. Is it wrong and rude and bad, especially as a tourist? Yes. But do you have to? No. Not to mention, does that man get up and tell every foreigner to do that? I don't want to spoil this video because we're going to talk about that later. But I just want to mention that here. No, he's never told a Japanese person to get up and move because somebody's waiting for the seat. And for a lot of people to understand this, you're allowed to sit there, granted, as long as nobody needs the seat. It's not wrong to sit there if nobody needs the seat. If nobody's waiting for the seat, you have the right to sit there. In fact, a lot of people that act like they need the seat, they don't want to sit in the seat or next to the seat that a foreigner sat in. For example, if I were to sit down there and then I get up, people will be hesitant to sit where I just got through sitting. If I'm sitting there and there's an empty priority seat next to me, a lot of people will refuse to sit in it because I'm there. Thus, I guess you don't really need the seat then. If you're willing to be prejudiced and racist about the idea of sitting next to me, based on the fact that I look different from you, and let's stop with the xenophobic bullshit. Xenophobic is literally a synonym for racist, for prejudice. It is on the basis of fear and ignorance, but since when was racism and prejudice not based on fear and ignorance? You see how it starts to not make any damn sense? Okay, I feel the same way. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We're almost done. We're over 2 hours into this video, but we're almost done. Okay. Just for you to understand that they tried to soften and say that this guy pushed him, but if you watch the video, if this is the case we're talking about, you see that actually before the man pushed him, the Japanese man not only invaded his personal space by standing over him, but he also appeared to have reached for his hat like he was trying to grab it off to throw it and, make him move his seat, or like he was going to punch him in the face, hit him, pull his hat down, do something. He was violating his personal space and was going to put his hands on him. See how they tried to unfairly twist this? And it reminds me so much of being a black person in the U.S., where when something goes down between you and the police or you and a white person, they try to twist it and make it sound like you're the monster, and they don't mention the person that invoked you to do that, what they did. They half tell the story. And so now, people that don't fully understand what happened, they're going to immediately side with the Japanese guy. And even the people that have seen the video, probably been like that for a long time, but the people that, see the video, their brains have been so conditioned to view foreigner bad, Japanese good, foreigner bad, Japanese good. That's going to be their anthem soon. Everybody going to have that as a ringtone in a couple of years. I need to copyright that. But anyway, they're going to have the foreigner bad, Japanese good mindset. And so even when you're showing them somebody explicitly doing something bad, going out of the way to put their hands on someone, they are still going to view the foreigner as in the wrong, not the Japanese guy. Their mindset is going to be, if he wasn't sitting in that seat, this would have never happened. So notice how they just comment on the fact that the foreign man pushed him for allegedly asking him to get up out of the seat, when that's not what appeared to have happened. They're not going to mention what really happened because that would make the Japanese look bad. We don't want to show them being confrontational and acting like a Karen. Or a Ken, if you will. That's a bad look. We can't show that. But anyway, moving along. Kamakura is also emerging as a flashpoint for over-tourism, particularly a railway crossing that appears in the popular slam dunk manga and anime. Fans of the series have in recent years flocked to the site to take photos with passing trains and the ocean in the background, but it has affected local people's lives. Residents have complained about littering and loud noise late into the evening, as well as foreign visitors trespassing onto people's properties, despite signs in multiple languages. Local police have also received reports of visitors entering a nearby hospital and a retirement home to use the toilets, while others have been seen defecating on the street. There is a lot to unpack with this, but that is the end of this article, so let me try to quickly do so. Okay. First things first. Again, if there's something that is widely shown inside of tourist books, the only thing to do inside of an area, everybody, the Japanese included, are going to go there. Kamakura is a very popular date spot. Okay? This is not just about slam dunk, but I get it. They're saying that specific area right there, allegedly. Okay, and who likely introduced that to them? A Japanese person told you that was where that was from. So, why are we blaming foreigners for this? And again, who's making the noise? Do we know that this is a foreigner doing? Have you seen videos specifically showing this is all foreigners doing this? There are not Japanese people contributing to the noise, to the litter, to the photos, to the popularity. Why are we being the fall guy? And see how you all are just, you're eating this shit up. I've seen no video of that. I have not seen consistent video showing me that. I have not been there when this is going on for me to believe that this even happened. But we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they're Japanese and they don't lie. So clearly this did happen. They wouldn't make that up. See how ridiculous that starts to seem? But that's how you guys act, right? Okay, let's assume this is foreigners' problems, right? You can't control what somebody does outside. You think people that live in Shibuya and Shinjuku get sleep at night? You have drunk Japanese prostitutes, yakuza, etc. You think those streets are quiet at night in Roppongi too? No, there's constant noise. Do we hear about the Japanese complaining about the constant noise, the smells of piss and urine, the fights, the stabbings? No, because it's fellow Japanese people. We need to put that in the news. You see where I'm going with this? These issues exist in other cities. Roppongi is popular because of its inappropriate nightlife scene. Same thing with Shibuya. Same thing with Shinjuku. Their red light districts are really popular. So people just expect nonstop noise late at night. Do you think that everyone in Shinjuku is just there working? People live there. People work overnight jobs. You're screaming, you're yelling, you're moaning, you're fighting. That's interrupting someone. Is it going to be newsworthy? No, because people don't care because they're Japanese. But if you, as a foreigner, you want to bring your noisy group, unacceptable. Not to mention, again, anytime someone does something bad, even if they're Asian, the assumption is going to be you are not Japanese. This is a foreigner contributing to the noise. This is a foreigner doing this. They've gotten to the point where they don't even have to show us video. They don't have to give us names. They can just say a foreigner did this and we're going to believe it. Just like this situation. Did I see somebody defecate? Do they have video, pictures? Can they blow out the person? Nope. We're just going to believe it must have been a foreigner. And I'm not even going to say that it wasn't. But I will say this. I've seen Japanese people not only piss outside, like in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking in front of my home in Shibuya. In the flowers and bushes. I saw a Japanese man in Osaka piss into the trash can. Did that make the news? Can I call the police and, I don't know, get my story featured on NHK or something? Like, please sign me up. How do I do this? They're not going to care. But God forbid, don't let a white or black man do that. It'll be the front page. It'll be like disrespectful black naval man or, whatever, something like that. They'll find a reason to connect it back to your nationality, to your race, and make it seem like all of you are like this. But see, when they do it, not only do they not connect and associate it with this is a racial issue or a nationality issue, they don't put it in the news. It's not going to get talked about. Again, bringing it back to the U.S., white people love talking about crimes and crime apps. Let's bring up one of your ancestors. The ones who never served any time. Were never served justice. Never, never got charged for the crimes they committed. You all hate P-word people, but that's your ancestors. That's who you came from. Your grandparents are sick. But we can't talk about that, can we? But now that you've decided, we don't do those things anymore as a whole. So now we're going to get angry at you if you try to do anything even remotely close to what we did. We're going to consider you as animals and third-class citizens. You can't have gangs. We can. You can't do drugs. We can. Well, the same way that goes in the U.S., Japan's kind of the same. If they do it, we don't see it. Everybody's, Ray Charles in this bitch. Stevie Wonder in this hole. Ain't nobody seeing shit. But, foreigner does it. All of a sudden, we Stevie Wonder 2.0. You ever seen them videos where it seems like he can actually see what's going on? That's what everybody turns into suddenly. Oh, now you see. Now you understand. Now you know that this is bad behavior and you should call it out. Now you recognize, hey, somebody should stand up for that person and encourage them, hey, give up your seat. Interesting. Also interesting that they normally act like they don't want your seat until they see that you're not offering your seat. Because see, when you offer your seat, they'll say, oh, no, I don't need it. Or they'll ignore you. Or act embarrassed that you're offering it to them. But then if you don't offer it and give it up, then suddenly people are snickering and talking shit about you for being the rude, ugly American, so to speak, right? Interesting. Also interesting that this rule does not apply for them. Because, see, they can sit in the seat and they can fake sleep, they can listen to music, they can pretend to be busy on their computer, they can fake an injury, they can fake an out they're elderly, and nobody cares. But you can be visibly pregnant, you can have a broken leg, and you existing there is going to piss people off. I'm just saying. I've kind of already wrapped this all up, but why are we only going to care about the lives being affected in this area and we're not going to care about Shinjuku, Shibuya, or Roppongi, which has lots of loud noise from Japanese people? And sure, tourists also add to it, but it's mostly Japanese people, and that's why they don't care. The defecating thing, are we going to see video pictures, proof that this person's a foreigner? And also, okay, so a one-off person doing something one time, we're not going to act like this is a regular thing that happens on a daily basis. And also, let's address the bathroom thing, just like the trash cans. If you know that a place is heavily trafficked with tourists and you don't provide a place for them to use the bathroom, you don't provide trash cans for them, you don't provide a place to wash hands, what do you think is going to happen? Just as I experienced Taro peeing in the trash can and Taro pissing in the bushes and flowers in Shibuya, in which there was no excuse because there was literally 2 convenience stores, a Family Mart and a 7-Eleven less than a block away from where that happened. But you see how, like, when we do stuff that makes sense because there's no bathroom anywhere near here or everything's closed, we're shamed for it. We're never going to consider the fact this person may have been drunk either. Which is also very interesting that they don't mention the possibility of that. Especially since it's supposed to be late at night, right? Interesting. So you all can vomit on the buses and trains and the floor and on the seats. And the seats, we just say, oh, well, they'll be clean. You know, hard work. Or even though 90% of them, that's not the case. It wasn't from no damn hard work. You were cheating on your wife, drinking out with your friends. You were at a girls' club. If foreigners started going to bars and passing out and vomiting on buses and trains and on sidewalks, it would be newsworthy. But when they do, we have to consider, no, Taro's a hard worker. Sachiko's a hard worker. Like, they're not drunks. They're dedicated to the cause. They're just trying to help their company out. She has an interview in the morning. It's Japanese culture. You try to join in that culture with your white or black ass, and watch how quickly it becomes a news story. Just saying. No proof this ever happened. It could just be a rumor that somebody defecated on the street, but we all are supposed to believe it. Let's say that there's picture and video proving that it's there. Do we know how it got there? Did we see who put it there? Do we know how long it's been there? See how easy it is to believe things when you already decided that you're going to have a racial bias against a certain group and favor another group? Let's also add this too. We're going to completely gloss over the fact that Japan has a lack of these things, which causes people to have the desire for this. Let's just keep it real. I think everybody's littered in Japan at some point because nobody wants to carry around garbage all day, especially not when it's hot or really cold outside. Everyone's either almost had an accident or you went somewhere to use the bathroom that you weren't really supposed to because you're about to have an accident. Can we acknowledge that there's a lack of bathrooms, a lack of trash cans? Even when you find a bathroom, normally there's not a trash can. So what happens? I don't know about you all, but pretty much every major train station, unless the staff just like constantly is cleaning that bathroom, you're going to come across bathrooms in which people purposefully leave behind bags of trash. It'll be like shopping bags with cans and tags and just items that are hard to get rid of. Plastic, pet bottles as they call them, etc. Things that are hard to get rid of that nobody wants to hold and have to take around with them all day. So what happens? People leave them in the bathroom stall. It's bad manners and rude, but think about it. If there's no trash can anywhere near you, even when you go to the bathroom, which is normally the safe spot where you know there's going to be a trash can, what are you going to do then? You're going to leave it somewhere. You're going to leave it on the bathroom sink. You're going to leave it on the toilet floor, on the little banister thing behind the toilet. You're going to leave it on top of the trash can, meant to throw away pads and tampons. You're going to leave it in a place it does not belong. It's littering. The only difference between what you did and what they did is you did it inside the bathroom. They did it outside in the street. I don't know which I would say is worse, but here goes the reality. If y'all care about trash so much, provide trash cans. You don't want people pissing and pooping outside? provide a place to use the toilet. And isn't that silly? You can't go to the hospital to use the bathroom? Huh? Like, do you hear how crazy and petty that sounds? Let me read that again. Like, did I get that wrong? You can't go to the hospital bathroom. Crap, it just like exit me out of the page. Can I find it still? Okay, here it is. I didn't realize how crazy that sounds. Let me read that again. Yeah, local police have also received reports from visitors entering a nearby hospital and retirement home to use the toilets while others have... See how that's not even seen as a Karen complaint? Imagine if the U.S. were to write an article about how we're complaining about Japanese or Chinese people using some nearby hospital bathroom after the New Year celebration countdown in New York. We'd be like, okay. Like, it's a public facility. You can't... Now, fine, the retirement home's a little bit different, but even then, there's no sign. Is there a sign saying you can't use the bathroom there? And if there is, okay, that's just cruel then. There's no bathrooms nearby. You all know you have a tourist location right down the street from where you are. What do you think is naturally going to happen? People are going to want to use it. So if you don't want that to happen, put up a different system and lock your door so nobody can get in unless you let them in. And for the people that own this place, the city, whatever, how about put some porta potties up? How about put a convenience store or something around where people can use the bathroom? You can even charge for it if you want to. But at least give them an option. You can't tell people no trash cans, no toilets, and then get mad. I mean, we took away the trash cans and toilets, but we didn't know you were going to piss and shit everywhere. We didn't know you were going to leave your trash. Yeah, the average person won't, but some people will. Also, let's keep it real. Not everybody has the same body. Some people have issues holding it, including Japanese people. Not everyone is capable of holding it for long periods of time, especially not if you're drunk. You're not even in your right mind. See how the assumption is when a foreigner breaks a rule, they're in their right mind, they know exactly what they're doing. But if a Japanese person breaks the rule, the assumption is they didn't know what they were doing. They weren't in their right mind. They were drunk. They didn't understand. We make excuses for them. I'm done. I just spent nearly 3 hours dissecting that article. I ain't even got nothing else to really add to this. I just hope that you took away exactly what you needed to. There's a huge double standard. There's tons of propaganda everywhere made to make you hate foreigners, including yourselves. And for the stupid white people, some black people too, some non-Japanese Asians as well, that think you're helping the cause by trying to other yourself, by being the model minority and being like, I don't do that. I'm a resident. I've been living in Japan for 70 years. Racist people don't give a shit, okay? Like, they lie to you. They say, oh, we're not talking about you. You think they're going to defend you and single you out for being the good guy when they're around Japanese people complaining and bitching about tourists? No, the fuck they won't. You're wasting your time. You're just as gullible as the Japanese that are bitching and complaining about these things, and they're literally rioting and picketing outside with the restaurant owners who are acting like they agree and support them, when in actuality, they're not going to vote in favor of what they're asking for. They raised the prices for a reason. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. They recognize we can make some big money off of this shit. They're being greedy. They could lower the cost for these hotels. They could put different, measures in place. They could have rooms reserved just for school students. They can make them have special pricing. They can make it free. They can make it where the tax dollars cover it, but they don't want to do that. It's all strategic. So, that's it. I'm done. Believe, do whatever you want to. I just hope that you took away from this a little bit more common sense. And at this time, when you read and listen to stuff, whether it be on X, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be on Threads, whether it be on YouTube, or listening and reading and watching the news or hearing conversation outside in Japan, that you use your brain just a little bit more and think, that sounds like something that should upset me. But let's get some more details. And you saw how I broke that down for you. How they purposefully have skewed the data for how many tourists there are. Where are the tourists even going? Because how do we know? All right, there's 56 million, but how many are actually going to Kyoto? Now, remember the data that I gave earlier said there's only 10 million going there per year. Which is significantly less than what we're getting in one city such as Los Angeles or New York or Miami. See how they purposefully misrepresent things? The case with the Spanish guy. See how they tried to frame it like this innocent old Japanese guy? He just wanted him to give up his seat for this poor old Japanese lady. She needed to sit down. He pushed him. How could he? Then they leave out the fact that this guy was irritable, got up from halfway across the train to fight this dude, and didn't expect to get some pushback. He got in his face, acted like he was going to grab his hat, snatch it off, pull it down, hit him in the face, something. And the young dude was like, no, the fuck you not. He got put back in his place. He was being a Karen. But they don't say that part of it because that make them look bad. You're being stupid. You're being gullible. They're fooling and using you. So, I'm done. Leave your 2 cents down below. Did I change your mind? Did I enlighten you? Did you not think about these things? Are you stuck in your ways? Do you feel like you still need to fight to separate and distinguish yourself from the bad tourist? Because you're a good boy. You're a wonderful model minority. You're not a tourist. You're a foreign resident. You don't want to be put in the same category as them. Join the party. Welcome up. Welcome to reality. Now you see what it's like being black in America. I'm not a gangbanger. Do I get to other myself? Nope. Even when those people do bad and wrong things, their stereotypes go for me too. Now you see how it feels. Welcome to the cookout. So, I'm done, you all. Leave your 2 cents down below. Let me know if you agree, you disagree, what your thoughts are on this. What do you think about any of the different parts that I read inside this article? And if you want to access this to give you the exact title of the article that I read, if you think that I was bullshitting you, I already gave you the title, but it is from South China Morning Post. Japan schools ditch Kyoto class trips as over-tourism bites. It's too expensive. That is literally the title of it. There are other articles on the same topic, but just want to put that out there for you. And my data that I got for tourism came from ChatGPT, which is why I said that I will be fair, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to assume that this newspaper had the better data because they gave higher numbers. But even with those numbers, you saw how they switched around what exactly the numbers were. They refused to give exact amounts for exact cities and to actually distinguish between, okay, how many were Japanese and how many were actually foreigners. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they will likely see there's more Japanese people going to these places than actual foreigners. It's too much to go back through all this. I mean, but you saw the same thing even with the restaurants. They tried to blame it on the pandemic, blame it on the foreigners. Like, they don't want to say greedy restaurant owners, greedy hotel owners. No, they want to make them, their own people look bad. They can't put that out there. So whatever. Please don't forget to like this video, leave a comment down below, share this with somebody if you care. It really help my channel out. Subscribe if you haven't already. All of my social media links are in the description box down below, as well as at the end of this video. Please consider joining me on Patreon for $10 US per month. I have tons of videos, live streams, group chats, everything there. And that's all for this video. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope you're not watching another video. I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already. And again, please leave a comment and leave some engagement behind for my channel. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.